I already have, and I already paid for the thing. Then I'd rather just pay for the home.
Yeah, it's yesterday. Oh, yeah. We're gonna start tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, and I just responded and said, right, I just because. Until they show up, no.
And there used to be water, but it's dried up.
Oh, yeah.
So I found a place that I can do a vinyl sign.
Well, you have there's one case, one class going, but yeah,
Orange, it's a girl, and I want to use the same.
where they had people parked up on the
Well, I was from the.
It's that time, you know, it's supposed to have to be out, so it's just gonna be out. Busy.
Written permission of the Lord.
It's something that was outside.
We ready?
We ready?
We might need people and stuff out.
Doing this, yeah, please.
No, it's usually the same thing.
Oh, okay.
I just saw him
And other people had to put up.
join, so.
I know, it's hard for her to get here.
So before you guys say anything, so here on my nose, I called my, so this morning, 6 o'clock, I came to my, I've got two fridges, the one in the house, main house, and I've got this really old 1960s like fridge, it's so cold, but it's like, so expensive to run. 6 o'clock this morning, my wife went into the freezer part and she opened it, her eyes contact shut it, but I didn't realise, but I yanked the handle, it looks like I pulled it broken, and I've got little, like I went there with a little man, I was like, get a bottle of water out of it. I know, that's the thing, I obviously clearly, like, I didn't pull it open, I've got sellotape on it, I'll put it tape, yeah, so, I don't know how bad it looks, but this morning it was still bleeding at the office.
Hi, Glenn. Would you like me to show you pictures of my property?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, my attorney's already involved. There's going to be a harassment.
Hold up.
Is this for CDD?
No, it's not.
Can we just start?
Yeah, we got a lot to go through, so we're not like.
Joanna and Yep. There's no left there. So I am all set with the guidelines.
Recording in
Here, so I'll no longer be harassed.
Gotcha.
Hey Steve, how are you?
Hey Jason, thank you for letting me in.
Yeah, I'll just make you a co-host so you can mute, unmute as needed, okay?
Awesome, thank you.
Alrighty. Steve.
Oh,
Board member Steve. Alrighty. I'd like to call order to the Dupree Lakes Community Development District meeting. That's item on the agenda is roll call. I'll start myself for transcription purposes. Move to my right, Jason Green with GMS.
Benedict, what you take off? Sorry, a little less. Daniel Carey, CDD. Glenn Roberts, CDD.
Reading Grove CDD, Sonoma Relay CDD, Dream Along, GMS.
And we also have Marshall with pleasure from GMS. Good evening, everyone. And then we have Steve Shaw, also with the board, correct?
Here.
All righty, excellent. Let's start with the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If anyone on this table had an excuse, it would be me. Next item on the agenda is audience comments related to agenda items. We are going to do 3 minutes, and this is where it's going to be, it doesn't need to be a back and forth, it's just take resident comments, and then at the end, if the board wishes to answer any, then they may do so. Any audience comments related to agenda items?
And we'll have a separate public hearing on the parking rules, so if anyone has any comments on that, just wait until we open that public hearing.
Any audience comments? No? Alrighty. With that, we are going to move into the approval of the April 15th meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? There's a motion by Janelle. Second by Glenn Roberts. All in favour? Alrighty, motion passes. I'd like to, before we go any further, we do have your vendor with Bandu present here. If you wouldn't mind stepping forward. The reason why we have Bandu here is to request information regarding the increase in service fees, and obviously Bandu were invited, so we instructed that we'd like them to be here. All right, go ahead, sir.
All right, how you doing? I'm Robert with Bondo LLC. Take care of your pool. Unfortunately, Chem since last year has just gone up, and it's gone up. So I'm requesting that, increase in the monthly fee because I have to cover these chemicals. Because just like an example would be chlorine would be, normally we were paying like $1.65 a gallon, we're doing $2.15 per gallon now. Acid is like $1.85 to $2 something now, it's like $5 a gallon. Stabilizer has increased to $70, it used to be $40, $50. Bicarb, it just goes on and on. So, but this is slowly has been happening since last year. So, and it just comes to a point that I want to bring it up to you guys. And then the other thing is, this is only for the summer. So the summer months is when it's really, really bad. My request on the increase is only between May and October because that's the hottest, that's when it's used quite a bit. And we also, on top of that, our contract is basically 3 times a week. But we come here Tuesday, Thursday, we check the chems, we do whatever it is. Last summer, we did the same thing. And then we come here on a Sunday because the size of your filter is just not the right size for the amount of people that, that is swimming in this pool, which is fine. We made adjustment on that. The thing is, we come here on Saturday, last summer, pretty much every Sunday because we clean the filter. Because when the flow is down, there's no chems in the pool. Okay, when the flow is down, it's harder on your pump. Okay, so we've been coming, the health department shows up on a Monday, we want to pass. Okay, so I don't want that to be an issue. And then we've done a couple other things that I don't nickel and dime you guys. The pool lights, we put that back in, the steps. There's just little knickknacks that get in there, we just take care of it. So I'm requesting, it's basically from $22.50 to $28.50 increase. So
it's very conveniently 26%.
It's pretty much.
The word tariff comes into mind, and a lot of folks are trying to pre-tariff.
Yeah.
And it is so convenient, and it could just be a simple number, but it's very convenient, it's 26%.
I'm just kind of fitting overall how much I have to pay my guys, gas, everything else, and it comes out to, I can live with that, but I'll work with you guys. Like I'm not here to, it's not an ultimatum in any way, shape, or form. This is just a discussion. I like to bring it up with you guys. And like I said, the price has increased since last year. And I left it alone last year. And I did not do anything.
Robert, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Don't you use more chlorine as it gets hotter?
it does. Yes, that's part of it. That's why I focus more only on May to October, because that's when you guys when we use the most chemicals.
Okay, so can I just ask I think the math question, from May to October, how much more is that gonna cost the district?
I honestly, it was just $600 raise, per month, basically.
So, that,
Or that 4200. 7 months.
6 months, right?
3,600.
3,600.
So if we're at 3,600, I think that's where the board, is that livable? Because if it's not, then we need to kind of like speak with Robert, what do we want to
Yeah, we
do?
know we had an inadequate service provider for this in the past, right? So, and we made a huge leap in.
From 895 to 2250.
Right, so that was a big budget,
Right.
increase for us, and really it's a cool thing, that's. And then, I did think that you said that, well, Dream on mentioned chlorine, but I know you have to use stabilizers and stuff, but as it relates to chlorine specifically, I think you said correct me if I'm wrong, but when you started, you said that they shouldn't be really adding chlorine to our pool because of the type of commercial pool pump and filter and stuff, the system that like calibrates the chlorine. We should be like dumping chlorine in there, so.
Okay, so first of all, let's go back a little bit, okay? So, we don't dump chlorine, okay? We maintain chlorine at a 2 to a 3, because the health department can show up anytime, and we don't spike it, we don't shock it, we maintain it. And we put the computer and your chemical pump there, we include that in our service, which is, you're not gonna find that any other
So
place.
you're not buying jugs of chlorine, that would be part of.
No, I have my guy deliver it. We go by 55-gallon barrels. So you usually, like, every 2 weeks, you have 3 55-gallon barrel in the summer. So I have that delivered here, and then the controller and the chemical pump make adjustment. Based on the testing, there's a probe in the computer, basically. We call them controller. Okay, and then the water goes through these probe connect to the controller, and then the controller tells the chemical pump what to do.
Right.
So we always maintain between 7.4 and 7.6 on the pH, which is required, and then we always maintain a 2 to a 4. Health department allows us from a 1 to a 10.
Okay, so you still have to provide the chlorine to the unit to disperse the chlorine.
Yes,
appropriately.
but it's
Okay.
consistent.
Yeah.
But there is no shocking, and I know I've had people coming in and say, hey, you know, is it okay to swim? It's always okay to swim. That's how I run all my commercial pools.
Okay, I just want to make sure about the use of chemicals and to what extent the cost increase was related to what chemicals.
Yeah, it's all of it. Like, so every time liquid chlorine goes in, it has a pH of 13, so the pH rises. So you always have to have acid to bring your pH down, okay? And then pH, alkalinity, they all work together. So, and then stabilizer basically helps keep the chlorine in. But that, unfortunately, has gone up too, so.
So how many months has it increased before?
6. It's 3,600, like extra in fees. I think it's just a case of what's the board's comfort level? Is it?
Like I said, one of the questions I asked is, have your costs gone up 26%, turn around at 26% us?
It has, quite a bit overall, you know, so chem-wise, cost-wise, labor-wise, vehicle-wise, delivery, I have to pay for that, everything has gone up, so.
So 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, instead of it being the $600 a month increase over the 4 months or 6 months, just say we negotiate, but take that and spread that across 12, and then so it's not as much of a hit as a month, right? And then.
You can spread it out over a
Right.
year. I'll work with that.
And then the other question is, you mentioned you're here a lot on Sundays cleaning the filter. Dreamer, this is a question for you. Is that something staff can do?
Is that what?
Is that something staff
No,
can
we're
do?
not qualified to.
Yeah, we're not qualified.
Okay. You can't pull the filter out, hose it off, and stick it back in?
No, first of all, I'm talking about a pressure filter.
So-
We're talking about a big pit which has 40 grids in it, okay, so it has,
Answer my question.
okay, well, no, it's, I don't mean, it's not a backyard pool. It's not, yeah, so it's a lot, like, it's big equipment, 6, 8-inch pipe, 15 horsepower pump. I mean, and the pit is huge. It's a gravity fed pit, you know, where, you know, because suction is not allowed by health department on your main drain pipe.
Okay.
That's why the water goes to the pit, and then the pump sucks it through the filter from your pit, and then shoots it back out there. That way, your main drain, there is no major suction.
Okay.
So, but it's very different.
The Melanie thing.
I mean, to me, it makes sense, we just spent over almost 150 grand redoing the pool.
Yep.
If this is what we need to keep it maintained, then I'm fine with it. I'm not sure there's a huge benefit between 6 months or 12 months, other than we have a tight budget this year and it would save us. But it's overall, it's not that expensive, it's not,
Right.
I'd say we just pay it.
Very good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm all right with it. I would only go back to another, or last bid for the same purpose with our proposal that we received. You know, to see what kind of quote, right, we're not locked into a contract. So, all right with it.
I think you're right. I mean, you are using more chemicals and products during the summer months, because it's hotter. But in the off months, October back to April, I think that's where we can see that reduction. If we can figure out, make it good, month to month, whatever that number may be, that'd be very good.
Steve?
Yeah,
Because we're not using products as much from October till April roughly.
Yeah,
So I would see
definitely.
that reduction in
yeah,
the
and I
months.
appreciate the fact that you're willing to say it's only for 6 months and then we'll go back to the price. To your
But
point, I think it would
after
be good after that to figure out
Yeah.
how can we just maintain it throughout the year? Because that would help us from a budgeting perspective.
Yes.
How much?
$300.
Yeah. Steve, any input here?
No, I just don't like the timing of this request. We're coming to our busy season, and obviously if your costs have gone up over the last year, you know, why wait to May to notify us of a 26% increase? So not happy with the way this has been rolled out. I would counter say that, you know, at max, maybe 10-15%, that's what we're seeing in the industry, but for the other board members.
I like to negotiate, Robert. That's what I like, you know, I
Okay.
punch the gloves on and get in the ring and talk about
Okay.
it a little bit. 500. Consensus.
I'll work with you, that's fine.
Perfect. Done. We like what you do, we like your service. I'll be honest with you, I love the computerized system.
Okay.
And that was what sold me personally.
Yes.
Last year when we had talked about this, that it does, you know, the way that it does, and we know that our residents are safe.
Yes.
And, but at the same time, everybody's gotta eat a little bit more, but we do too. So I appreciate your neatness on that.
Yeah, no, I'll work with you guys. So, you know, so we'll keep it.
And just so we know, like for the billing, do we want it just for the summer months, or is it gonna be leveraged over the whole year?
What would you recommend?
I mean, from a budgeting standpoint, it doesn't really matter.
You know, of course, the year is the dollar, not the dollar, not the buck, that's the buck.
I'd like to see it leveraged over the whole year, especially considering we have to have a difficult conversation as relates to how we cover landscape costs here coming up.
Agreed, Steve.
Alrighty, so
And Robert, if you're okay with that, doing across 12 months instead of.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'll work with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, so it just, it'd be the extra $250 a month on the billing. I don't think that there's anything more, do we need a motion on that, or do we just, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, motion to approve the proposal, subject to change we've discussed and agreed upon here, and then I'll draft an amendment to the agreement we have with you.
No, I don't think so.
Any motion by Glenn?
I'm sorry.
So we have an agreement with you, so what I'm gonna do is, we made some changes to the proposal that's in the agenda package.
Okay.
I can make those changes, just, you know,
That's
on my
fine.
computer, the proposal, before I incorporate it into an amendment to that agreement, and then I'll send it over your way. If you have any questions about, anything there, you know, you can reach out to me, we can talk it over, but it.
If you want to send the contract over again and then rewrite that, I mean, I think you guys send me.
Yeah, I mean, we resend it to you, it's gonna be an addendum, it's gonna be the same, I know that you've seen them.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because other clients, I send the contract, you guys send me the contract, whatever works is fine with me.
Well, have to draw up an amendment, change the
Okay.
dollar amount, exactly side.
So we got a motion by Glenn, we have a second?
Second.
By Dan. All in favor? Steve?
Thanks,
All right, thank you.
All right, yep, excellent, not a problem.
All right, thank
I
you.
just wanted to make sure.
If you wanna hang out, feel free, but you got something to do.
You said that last
In and
time.
out. Alrighty, next item that we have is the public hearing, it's consideration of resolution 25-4, adopting the rules in related to the parking enforcement. We have a motion to open the public hearing. All in favor? Motion passes. Do we have any public comment at this time regarding the resolution adopting rules for parking enforcement? Hearing none.
It's just only related to, CDD
CDD areas, correct?
areas. It's
Yep.
got nothing to do with local roads.
Nothing to
correct?
do with anything like that.
I still wish it did.
I know, but I gotta make sure.
I think many of us did. It's all just related to CDD parcels where we can actually enforce this. So with that, do we have a motion to close? We have a second? Second. All in favor? Alrighty, motion passes. Excellent. So moving into the next item, you will see that we've got this was I believe this is yeah. So I mean, this is it's the resolution basically states that we hold public hearing and adopt the rules attached to the resolutions exhibit A. So we have discussed this. Back, we're actually on leave, so, yeah, it's been a while. So basically, we'll just prohibit parking, in the red areas depicted, in Exhibit A to the rule between the hours of 11 p.m. to 10 a.m., with the exception of, vehicles that have been registered with the amenity manager. Those vehicles may park in the amenity center parking lot only. So it's currently written, it's going to be a maximum of 5 vehicles to be registered to park there at any given time, and the maximum length of time they can be permitted to park there 72 hours, after which they're going to need to reach back out to the amenity manager and apply again for permission to park.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the areas in red are not parking lots in general anyway.
No.
So those would be 24/7.
That's correct, yeah, the exception applies only to the amenity center parking lot. Yep, that's right. Yeah. So, and that's basically the long and short of it, and we'll talk about going here in a second. Additionally, the rule should provide us with the ability to impose fines if we violate this rule. It's just typically we don't use that mechanism to only use the direction rule to go, which is easy for everyone, but just kind of an additional enforcement mechanism in the event that you guys decide for whatever reason a special case arises, and that's how you'd like to move forward. But happy to answer any questions you guys have about the rule. I think the map is a lot cleaner than what you had before, so thank you, Marshall, for putting that one together with the map.
So item number 2 does say between the hours of 11 and 7, but to Glenn's point, it should be 24/7.
So the only, so you mean prohibiting parking on these spaces 24/7?
Yes.
Yeah, like we could have that, meaning, obviously that doesn't include the amenity center, but you're meaning if someone parks in. No, that's a good point. I know what she's saying. So she's saying,
Empty lot.
I'm saying as far as these empty lots, yeah, it should be 24/7, you can't park there.
Right.
Yeah, I actually don't know, because originally the rule was drafted, it was just the amenity center parking lot. So I actually don't know if the language,
I think we
So
add
let's
that
include
amendment,
that.
I would,
But we can-
I think that's a great point.
well, I think that's right, yeah, so we can,
So would we just be changing the time in subsection 2A?
well, yeah, so essentially what we would be saying here is that you can't park, the only change we would make is you saying you cannot park, you can park the amenity center parking lot outside of the hours of 11 and 7 without registration. You can't park anywhere else, any of the other red areas, anywhere, at any time, not even, with the amenity manager's permission. Yeah, I believe as written now,
It shows the West side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I just
Which
worry.
would, no, it's implied you can, yeah, no, I can totally understand that. So, yeah, I can make that change, so, with that in mind, we can go ahead, and unless you guys have any further questions or changes, we can, move the subject to that change.
That's the only thing I wanted to make sure there was clarification.
Okay.
Other than the Amenity Center, there is.
Yeah, okay.
Not that we don't have a problem with it, but we didn't have.
Why not, yeah,
Make it wrong.
No, well, beforehand, there was several areas where residents were parking in your, way back when there were issues before, that we had to make sure that it was enforced to them, so having that language in there, there's no, yeah, exactly. So I think we look for a motion to approve as amended, adding, to the towing policy. So that was a motion by, Janelle. And then there was a second by Glenn, and you had that one, right? Glenn, you second, all right? All in favor? All right, motion passes. Excellent. Consideration of the towing agreement. Now, we got 3 towing companies. If I'm not mistaken, 813 Towing Services, is that who our preferred, who we would recommend, or who is your?
813 is also who's still
Epperson North, right? And I think they also do Marada. Huh?
Mary, that, make sure they serve Pasco County.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if they're going out to Everson.
Well, there's also certain regulations, I mean, so towing in general is pretty heavily regulated in the law, so there's, I don't know the exact mileage, but the lot actually can't be further than like 10 or 15 miles away from.
Right, and all these are within that.
Yeah.
So if you look at their address, they've got Tampa, Orlando Lakes, Zephyr Hills, yeah, so they're able to tow that. And their towing policy that they have up there at Epperson North, because that's also a part of GMS, they tow between the hours of 11 and 6 in CDD areas just like this, so if they're in that area.
Right, they're not.
Sorry?
They're getting called, right? They're not actually going out proactively.
I think they go out there and run proactively. So meaning if someone was in your elementary setup, when there hasn't been notification, the sign's going to protect you guys anyway.
And are they, like, we've had the step sign out there for a long time, step drop service, but, whoever we choose, assuming they can agree, would they be putting sign of that?
Yes.
They are.
Yeah, that's their, you know, because they'll have their telephone number to call.
Typically for these, because in my experience, and, the agreement they try to put in front of you are not sufficient to protect the district. So we've got formal language that we use to make sure they're complying with, county ordinances and, state statutes, that way for, basically puts the onus on them, like the statutes, in the event that they're out of compliance, we sue for, we seek indemnification from this company. So I would suggest that, whoever you go with, we make them sign, our agreement. Just wanted to point out one other thing with the rule though too. Under our rule, we're not allowing road towing. We can change that of course, but that means that, someone would have to call, the towing operator to remove, moving cars, so.
The tow company told them to do it, and it's just allowed.
You want to run the drive?
Yeah,
Okay.
anything we don't have to be involved in, yeah.
Okay. So note,
Need the motion by one, two. or-
yeah, let's just go ahead.
Motion to appoint 813 towing, then that's probably the motion I'll take.
With that and amending.
For rowing, for rowing.
Cool, yeah.
Okay. All in favor? Steve, you in favor of the towing? Steve?
Yes.
Alrighty, excellent. Sounds good. Alrighty, how do we want to address, so we have our budget hearing first, would we rather talk about the landscaping first and then go into the budget?
Yes.
You want to do that first? Okay. It's in, I have it on your, there, on that iPad thing. The budget is all part of your agenda package, so I have that. So what I'll do, we're gonna discuss the resignation letter that was provided by Carbon Landscaping, rather than hashing out, going through what they did wrong, what can we do to salvage that relationship. Unfortunately, Carbon Landscaping, after asking if they would be willing to entertain, which board members did reach out and ask us to ask them, like, hey, would you be willing to stay? And unfortunately, they just felt at this point that the relationship for them, and they didn't want to entertain that. Unfortunately, I did ask them to attend today's meeting, obviously, if there was any questions, and they decided to decline showing to that meeting.
Is there I had the opportunity to read Mike's letter?
So with that, do we have a motion to, I guess, motion to accept the letter of resignation? There's a motion by Glenn Roberts. Do we have a second? Second by Dan Perry. So discussion. So you said, Steve?
I was just asking what the motion is to accept the resignation.
Yes.
Can we condition that acceptance?
They're unwilling to do anything.
I mean, what do you mean to accept it?
Well, the reason I bring this up is that last meeting we had talked about getting some information from Cardinal. One of the key components was the landscape or irrigation zone map that they had. And I'm worried that without that information, we're going to be at a disadvantage for whoever comes on board with that. And second to it, looking at the RFP that we've got a 2-month window here that we're going to have some kind of coverage before we probably get somebody fully engaged. So I think the discussion of just not only accepting the resignation, but conditioning the resignation as it relates to how we move forward.
Well, so just to, okay, you go first.
No, I was just going to say, accepting the letter of resignation is really just good form. Ultimately, these agreements give them an out. They gave us the required notice. So even if we had conditioned it or rejected the letter of resignation, this is still sufficient to terminate the contracts. There's really not a whole lot we can do about that. I don't know if you want to respond to the question about the documentation.
So we do have a vendor has provided that when they say volunteer, we've asked them.
There's a contingency contract ready to sign.
Ready to
from
sign.
another vendor, so there's no lapse in coverage.
Yes.
Through the RFP process, so paid on a weekly,
Yes.
basis.
Yeah. We have a vendor, trusted vendor that Prince and Sons has they are going to be responding to the RFP, as they would love to service your community. However, they are the one company that we asked and believe they can come in here and do a weekly service. I know Marshall. So before we go any further, do we want to, there's nothing we can do. Let's get through that motion and then let's talk about the RFP. Is that
But to Steve's point, I guess, and I've asked this question too, didn't really ever get a clear answer. Can we hold them in any sort of accountability aspect at all for not responding to the request at the last meeting before they resigned, specific to the maps of the irrigation system? And pull the notes. I would literally ask for irrigation maps, all documentation, any and all documentation of our community that they have, period. And like said, yes.
anything and everything that they do have, I can assure you we would certainly ask, because look, at the end of the day, anything that they have, any knowledge that we have here is a disadvantage even to management. Because if things start going bad, it's and they are not gonna. I know truly that they would not do that to you. They wouldn't do that as the good people, but they wouldn't do that to GMS either.
I would look at it, Mike Brown with a letter. I would look at it, I don't know if I'm gonna say,
I can assure you they're not gonna do that with GMS, they still do have a lot of other contracts and other communities where if they make this turn south further for Dupree Lakes and make this more of a difficult task, I can assure you that does not reflect well with us either.
I think you can more good faith that, hey, he came to me, here's what he said he was gonna do. Now you're cutting us high and dry, like, no lack of intended, but now you gotta come back and forth and say, here's the maps, here's the zones, all this stuff. That way the next irrigation company has this ready to go.
Oh, 100%. And
I think that's more good faith. I think it's like Lynn's point, it's more of a level of responsibility.
Maybe it's a situation then, if you could just draft up a quick letter.
Yeah, necessary, we can certainly do that. I'll say that, this, Cardinal's been around for a really long time. With our agreements, there's a provision we include there, the public record provision, basically that would cover this whole thing. Basically checking, we are subject to public records laws. As a result, every document that we exchange with them, any contract, all the drawings, things like that, are
quote unquote intellectual knowledge.
I don't know if intellectual property or anything like that is contemplated in that provision. I have to look at it. Yeah, I don't know, but
Thinking outside the box a little bit.
sure.
Property and blah, blah, blah.
But sort of, my point was, any of these plans, they would be required to turn them over as a contractual stipulation, so we would have grounds to breach a contract even after they terminate a contract, it's survived. So I can't speak to the contract we drafted up before I even got here. But just in the future, so you guys know, that would be something, if for whatever reason a vendor was refusing to turn over the documentation, they are required to under the contract, we go sue them.
We start with Jason and Clayton.
No, it's inventory of all the information Cardinal Landscaping has regarding intelligence of this community. Like it really is. They're not gonna, I fully trust that they're not gonna do that. They wouldn't do that to you guys, but I also don't think that they'd do that to us as a vendor, because landscaping goes bad, who hears it most? You guys hear about it on Facebook, we get the phone calls, we get the, we don't want this going bad, because that's that's also, it's not good news for us either, so.
Yeah, and it's just a practical industry thing, like, regardless, if something ever happened, you guys got with me or Jason, it would make, his life a lot harder if you let me go, we refuse to turn over documentation, right, and so have relationships there, and we do a lot of work together, so it is really just more, bigger than one district anyway. I would be surprised if they gave Jason.
No, I'm confident, and if there is something that does make it more difficult, then obviously I'll be very honest with all of you with that, so.
Okay. Will we make a motion to accept their resignation, is it retroactive to the date of April 24th when Mike sent the letter, or?
There's a 30-day out.
Yeah.
And the contract is also 30-day out.
It would be 30 days from the date they sent the,
23rd, I think it was. Right?
yeah, so the 30 day notice, technically, so their services are set to expire on, this Friday,
Yeah.
Friday.
Notice of discontinued service with Dupree Lakes effective April 23rd, 2025, with a 30-day out.
Ready? All in favor? All right, thanks, Steve. Alrighty, so with that, obviously, board direction and obviously staff direction is obviously obtaining all any documentation to help us for a future landscape. And then I think at this point, let's look at the positives, right? We've got the opportunity to find another really good vendor, that we can build a long-standing relationship with. And a couple of things that are really important with this, we've got GMS has worked with council. We built a scope of services which is actually specific to Dupree Lakes. It's not what you had drafted before. It wasn't just what a client provided you and just said, here's
Clayton put a lot.
we built the scope prior, but the agreement was not where the district was protected as much. It was just a standard agreement. It's not a 30-day out, it's a 60-day out. 60 days you can accomplish far more, regardless of a transition plan. And unfortunately, that's what we've got. But within the scope,
Marshall, I know that you do these all day long. I don't want to steal your light.
Before it goes into that, you just want me to give a general overview of the process and where we're at as far as this is concerned too?
Yes.
Are we talking RFP or are we talking about?
Well, I think we probably should address them both at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing about it, unfortunate that we had to, the relationship ended with Cardinal that way, but quite frankly, we're going to have to do it anyway at some point. So, under public procurement laws in the state of Florida, governmental entities, who are looking to obtain certain kinds of services must publicly bid them if they exceed a certain dollar threshold amount. There are different categories, set that.
194.50.
Yeah, it's $195,000 for maintenance services. So because the total value of this contract annually will exceed $195,000, we do have to publicly bid this, hence the RFP package that's in your agenda. So what we have in the agenda, we have the project manual and the evaluation criteria. So the project manual along the instructions are, these forms are just standard fare. The template agreement includes the scope of services that Mark will talk about here, that's customized based on the needs of this district. And the evaluation criteria includes 5 categories worth 20 points each. Again, this is a pretty standard layout here. You can make changes that if you want. Some boards like to do experience, 30, 40 points, maybe price, 30, 40 points, so you can't mess around with it if you want. However, in general, we usually just do 20 points across the 5 categories. Because we do have to go through this RFP process, and it does take time, and unfortunately time we don't have, given when we received the letter of termination from the Cardinal, that did create a need for interim services to cover the gap between when the Cardinal services officially terminate and when we're actually able to enter an agreement with our long-term vendor here. So for that reason, field team Marshall and Clayton did find a proposal for short-term maintenance services. We drafted up a quick agreement, and that's what Jason distributed here. So this agreement basically just is month to month, and we have a 14-day out. So we'll be able to time it up with when our next agreement starts, and we'll just terminate this, and it should be pretty seamless here. So that's kind of where we're at here. Happy to answer any questions about either one of those. Otherwise, I can just let Marshall talk about the actual scope here.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Prince and Sons, you said you reached out to them. I assume this is a vendor that you use in some of your other communities, and they do a good job.
How many, you work with Prince, I think that they,
How many properties do we have that we use them on?
Yeah.
I have right now, of mine, 90% right now are Prince, but they're a big vendor in Polk County. They expect in Tampa, and I trust them implicitly as far as showing up, doing the work. Are they human? Yes, one guy that's mowing the yard may miss, one section. Point it out, they're communicative, they get it taken care of.
I'm sure there'll be a big growing pains.
It's a new area to get used to, that's part of the proposal, is the fact that they're doing this without a contract, it's how that kind of, they come out here, they're doing this favor during a busy time of the year, that's all they're going right now. So they're going out of their way to kind of do us a favor, and I know it sounds, not tripping over them saying that they're, doing this major thing, and, we're holding to them, but it's just a busy time of year for them to come outside and see no contract, and just be like, okay, we'll come and maintain your property, and leave it, you're not even get a contract. So, it's also reasonable, given what you currently have. Because your current contract is about
Prince is a
200,000.
bigger operation than Cardinal. And maybe Cardinal, I don't think we understood how big they were, so they were bigger than I think what we really knew. But Prince is a larger outfit, just understanding on the CDD aspect and how much that they actually do.
Where are they based on, Jason? I don't see that in the.
Polk County, but they also have a Tampa operation too. They do up here. Do you have them on any Pasco County properties up here?
This is my own Pasco County property, so I can't really attest to that.
Right, that's true. Yeah. So, so when you're saying if they're local, yes. So they're Tampa based.
Pasco projects?
Under GMS, no. Yes, they do, Terabella over here, just off, State Route 54. They were just hired over there, actually. They were just hired over there. They took over LMP, back in March. So that's another one of our properties. So they are there. And then also going to be expanding over here.
So it's
I know it's a short-term solution, but just curious how they're staffed, how many crews they have.
I think for the short term, I think the RF, there's two options, there's two things. We found a solution for the short term. We found a company that's gonna mow every week during the busiest time of their season. They're willing to do it without a long-term contract. Prince and Sons are gonna help us out and get this done, and we're not gonna fall behind. You know, a week of missing a mow can be detrimental in the summer. Forget, like even 2 weeks would be horrendous. So I think, I don't see that there's much choice other than.
There is no choice.
Right, so I think we need to approve the agreement, the short-term landscape agreement, and also with the service agreement that our council's drawn up. I think this has to be accepted. Regarding the RFP, I think that that's those, Steve, are certainly going to be questions during the RFP process. That will be a public bid. Anyone, I know that there's other vendors that have reached out to the board members personally, you know, we've provided email. Anyone can bid, they just have to make sure that they qualify to do such a project such as this. But I think the first step is approving the short-term agreement with Prince and Sons.
What is the price of that, Jason?
So
$1,500 a week.
That's what I was gonna ask, is so that it's
So
more expensive.
it's more expensive.
So part of it's 38 and some change a week, over
There's
50.
16,000 a month, I thought.
Right.
yes, there's
16
16 a month.
$3,800 something dollars a week, which comes up to 16 a month, which is.
Well, this would also go down too. So this would
Right.
also go down. And I saw
I
that.
was going there, because I had asked Clayton that specific question, I was like, wow, it's a lot more expensive than Cardinal.
Yeah.
But we're doing it during the busiest time of the year, so if Cardinal broke it up, if they had the X amount of notes that they would have per week, they'd start going to 2 weeks, and I think November, Marshall. Then there would be a reduction in cost of that, so we're paying for peak season right now.
Okay.
So in the end, it's comparable, but we're out of contract, it's 14th day out.
Yeah, I totally get that, I mean, like you said.
Well, we're paying in the
Yeah.
most expensive season.
Yeah,
It sucks.
Paying more upfront now compared to average.
well, more than likely, we're gonna be paying more
Everything.
contract than when we get it, so, yeah, okay.
Did you want to say something?
No, that was kind of the idea. Peak season, it's not that far off.
Yeah,
My understanding too is the Cardinals have been kind of staying at their price range in that expanding market. Prices have gone up for a little while, so that may be more indicative of the overall cost of the community they eventually face during the busy season. But again, that's the busy season price. It's hard to hammer home that back to doing ponds and all the common areas which may be broken up. Cardinals price is also, I believe, is divided evenly across all 12 months.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
you're not seeing that high water mark during
Right.
summer, you're seeing an average.
Right.
So it's a little sticker shock at first, but when you get down into the nuts and bolts, it's not that far off.
Yeah, I asked that specific question to Clayton, and he gave me the exact, explanation, it's like, man, that makes way more sense now.
Motion.
Like,
Motion by Janelle, second by Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
Steve, was that an aye?
That's no, I don't have the proposal from it, so I can't.
So with that, obviously you do have a landscape vendor that, you know, we can get this executed. My understanding is that they will be starting to the 29th, I believe it is. That would be the first, I believe it would be the 29th that they're actually going to be able to start.
Are they really just mowing? I mean, I see other things listed in here, like tree trimming and, I mean, are they doing all that, or are we just really paying them to mow?
The primary goal of that is to get the road tight. That's the
Okay.
goal, so it doesn't get that. And if you let it get too far, then it's an exponential issue of, you have to then pay to clean it up before you can even maintain it again.
Right.
Some of those mowers can handle the tall grass, because you don't, obviously, you don't want to see it get to that point.
Yeah.
You want to the community stays under control.
Yeah.
basically, the part of the gist of the contract is what you see right now is what they're maintaining.
Yeah.
They're not gonna go above and beyond and go cut out a giant field of.
But if trees start hanging down under the walkways, they would.
Those
take
within
them down.
It says,
Right, within reason, yeah.
it says all shrubs and trees up to 10 feet shall be pruned and shaved every fourth visit.
Okay.
That's what I see in the tree, shrub, and ground cover care.
Irrigation is a big one, I would, you
Yeah.
know, that's unexpected, so that would be something we want to watch out for, if like the irrigation project started to go on and on and on, because we're getting charged by the hour.
Well, that was one of the things I requested.
So I just,
haven't gotten that.
so I got that from Patty at 5 o'clock when I was in the car. Just so I just want to get the range of months, so. I have it.
I have requested the last 12 to 18 months, just specific to irrigation costs that are associated with us, or whatever, just to see what that was. I was looking at the budget amount, I think it's $21,000.
$1,000 a year?
Just in the last year, that would be actuals through September that we have spent in irrigation repairs alone.
So this fiscal year, to date, what you've spent is 11,380. That's for this fiscal year that I've got.
So that's from October to May, or October.
So you said 22,000, you're right there, you're like literally, that's basically half the year, right? So, a little bit, well, it's about 7 months, so you're right there. That's what I was able to get from Patty. But if you want to go further than that, then we can expand it. I just wanted to make sure I had some rough numbers for you for this meeting.
Well, that's close enough, but still, I'd like to see all the invoices, just pile together over the last 12 to 18 months.
I've got what you got for this fiscal year. I just need to get the rest for the rest of them, so I can get that over to you for sure.
And along those lines about the tree trimming, like, because I know we kind of divided it in half or something like that. What? Third.
Third,
Okay.
yeah.
And so they completed all the tree trimming that we had paid for.
Well, it was as a, the
Yeah.
last tree trimming, I think the board actually said no to it, which was the 30, so it was 32, I believe it was the 32,000, you got two lots of 3250 to get it.
It was $64,000, but in the new, when you do in the RFP, there's two different clauses that are in there, one for 12 feet, one for 10 feet, varying on what they are for them to maintain just as part of their detail work.
Yeah.
That's in scope. So anything outside of that, hey, go trim the entire boulevard, make it all uniform and pretty and whatever, that would be the above and beyond, but the detail work, I think like it's 50 feet.
You're talking about what price?
No, we're talking about for the RFP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
Francis Services in there, it'd be every 4 weeks and it's 10 feet, and
Yeah.
10 feet. Yeah.
Okay.
Which we had a.
So that's an extra 2 feet is what Cardinal meant, is that right?
Correct.
so, part of the RFP, obviously, we got this quickly turned around because, and just, the reason why we had to wait was because of the dollar threshold. You have to advertise it, you have to let it out to the public for 30 days. It's best to bring it, so to avoid challenges, it's best to bring it from in front of the board approved the RFP, because there could be challenges if we just went ahead and just said, you know, chairman gave us authorization to get to approve this, we could be facing more, some more, like, you know, further scrutiny. You don't want to big protest because it only stops.
And also because, you know, unlike this one where it's, it really doesn't matter that much because it's short-term services anyway, this is gonna be a more, extensive commitment. You know, you're talking, I mean, ideally it'd be, you know, first year and then an additional 4 or 5 renewals. So it'll be a long-term commitment, so we wanted to make sure that you guys also each had, seen it and were able to provide some input to us before we actually went public.
I do have a question, and I might have missed it. I tried to read through it as much as I could, but it's a lot of landscaping stuff I don't understand. I see where it says extra care should be taken when considering sightlines on the road, but that, to me, that doesn't indicate that they have to maintain landscaping per the guidelines.
Right.
So is that somewhere else, or did we, is
So-
there a reason we didn't specifically call that out?
So I think, I'll give a quick
review of it, and I think it was discussions when because Jed, Bennett, Clayton, and it was Marshall were all part of the discussion, is that if you were to include that into your contract, they might, but you know what, they're gonna, your price is gonna just go through the roof if that's, and if being honest, like, it's not really a industry thing with sight lines in many contracts, and all of our districts, not one has that requirement. Is there anything that you can add to that, Marshall, or?
I mean, I think it's sort of a common sense approach. If you try and make this something where a council has to come through and actually look at each thing and measure it all out, and you're trying to hold them with their feet to that fire, really they won't do raise the rates if the prices are going to the roof. Or,
But if they high enough, they tell you they don't want work with it.
it's not ideal. You can't have your standard landscape guy all the time. You constantly go out there and measure out every single sightline for viable. But if you see something that's an issue where I think people can be like, you know, that makes my brain itch a little bit, like, that doesn't look right, then we pay attention. And if we need to, we can have somebody look at it. And every year, we can look at it and say, okay, that sightline needs to be changed a little bit. And then we can get that done.
Or we can just say like, just not be, shift so much of the burden down to be like compliant and not with those engineering codes, and just say like, maintain all shrubbery and the median to a height of 4 feet, you know? Like, just give them the measurement. I mean, is that considered a problem, that they need to maintain?
I mean, it's a reasonable standard. If you want all the shrubs to be approximately 4 feet, I wouldn't hold them down to the inch. It's just not practical, and then trying to force something through when, so let's say it's 4 feet, and they cut it right at 4 feet, well, if you want to keep it 4 feet, you may cut it at 3.5 feet, you cannot look into your community, because you're butchering your landscaping every time you cut them, so that you don't hit that 4-foot threshold.
I think I'm just trying to avoid the, you know, oh, look, all of a sudden this got awfully big, and then we have to, it's a whole project, and, you know.
I think that's more as we drive through and stay on top of it, we say, that's starting to block the entrance side a little bit, make sure you get that taken care of next week.
Yeah.
We're just standard how we normally drive, if it looks a little tall, say something, they'll take care of it, and if they don't, they'll that landscape will function.
Yeah, that wasn't happening.
Yeah, we just went through months and months, and that's one of the issues we have with Cardinal was, we have community complaining that they can't see when they're trying to turn out of these neighborhoods, because the median was full of bushes and grasses that are growing way too high, and you literally can't see the cars are coming, so it was kind of a fight with them, and that's what brought this whole thing on, and I thought that's why we paid an engineer to get us all this information, so I guess it's a little disappointing, because I'm not sure we needed to spend all that money with an engineer if we weren't going to build that into our contract, but if you're saying that the new landscape team is going to do it, even if it's not in the contract, and I can't say I believe it, because it didn't happen with our last one, but.
And I think that's the board decision. If you want to put these sidelines in, just please expect that your contract to be extremely heightened in costs.
Well, I think it just goes back to Mark's point. It's gonna be the common sense approach, and call it as you see it, call it out instance by instance, and we're not having a carbon matching session, but at the same time, we've been underwhelmed with the services that we've had over the last several years, and so we do have high expectations for who is gonna fill their shoes. And just making sure that, you know, we're crossing out dotting T's and making sure that, you know, we as a community look good. But we don't have a situation where, to Janelle's point, somebody pulls out a spring, and then we're liable because there's an attorney that's going out and taking that, and going, oh, well, your sightline's off.
So we think like that language was added to the contract purposely, just so we could
vague, but enough that there's still a point of focus.
And also with it, we can also provide that, hey, this is what the engineers told us, this would be this is a level of expectation, and then part of the field operations, you know, managers is to see that sight line, and any problem items, we can always have the landscaper cut that. Always cut it back, or be mindful that these are pressure points in the community.
Yeah.
Marshall, we're gonna lean on you some, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too, I mean, comes with you
Yeah.
guys setting the right expectations, because you guys are the ones that are dealing directly with.
And within reason, feedback in the community was always very helpful.
Yeah.
People were struggling at an intersection. I may not see it come driving my truck as much as somebody in a sedan will see it.
Right.
And then I can just go out there, look, you gotta be like, okay, that needs to come out, or this grass is too shaggy, it may not be a good choice at this particular location, let's pull it, put something shorter here.
Yeah, right, like, the wetland buffer was another one, like, where we, that became a project, and we paid a bunch of money to have the buffer area got, back to where it was supposed to be, like, reclaim the buffer. But then nobody really wanted to, and it sounds like whatever will want to just like spot check and be like, okay, is this 5 feet, or is this, now 3 feet, like, and then maintain it, instead it's like, whoa, it's out of control again, and we have to pay, tens of thousands of dollars to get it back to where it's supposed to be.
Right.
So it's just, seems like, now that we have this opportunity, whether we like it or not, like, that we can try to do something, go about it differently,
And I think also with the presentations, like bringing that to them and say, look, we've had these sidelines drawn, this is gonna be an expectation of the pressure point in the community. It's gonna be brought up to you regularly, so try and get ahead of it rather than, and they probably, they'll provide the feedback like, yeah, that's, Marshall's point, within reason, we will be taking care of it, but don't be shocked if Marshall brings something up to you nearly every week, 2 weeks, that we're cutting these areas back. And I think it's, we will get a good feel with from the presentations that we have.
They're being, presidents are being given an opportunity, knowing that they're gonna bid on the RFP, they're being given an opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
And they may come in here and wow us, and they may come in here and go, you got to better than that. But at the same time, again, giving them an advantage, but
Right.
at the same time, if there's very only person bids, or there's 10 bids, that comes into play too. And that's where we can really start getting into detailed questions, at that point where we're, grading everyone, what they're offering. So, and those are things that need to be brought up specifically is sight lines and buffering, buffer lines.
Yes. Yep, I think so, but a more detailed scope was certainly something that you guys really needed.
Clay spent a lot of time on that and did a very good job of tailoring that to Dupree Lakes, knowing the issues and pain points that we've had over the last several years. Marshall, I'm not sure how much involved you got with that, but you did, thank you. As well. So.
Yeah, they sit next to each other in the office, so I think they were bouncing back and forth.
So just so you guys are aware, the reason that this package is so detailed is because there is a formal RFP process of cone of silence. So we're not actually allowed to, you guys aren't actually allowed to individually reach out to any of the contacts and ask any questions. That's why, and we can issue, if you guys decide that there's something after the fact right now that you would like to change, we can always issue addendums as well to make changes to the packet as we go. But just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of how that process works. It is pretty restrictive, and that's why really we would never go out for RFP like this unless we were required by statute.
So if the contractor reaches out to one of us individually, turn to Jason.
Yeah, I mean, and really, when they ask this question, that's why if you look in the instructions proposed, there's one of the dates in there will be deadlines for questions. So the way it's supposed to work, so we do have a pre-proposal meeting where, I won't attend, but your field services team will attend. And they'll ask me questions, if anything we need clarified then, or if they have any questions, they email to Jason or me about, yeah, I can pull, like,
That's May 28th, and then the other one's Tuesday.
Okay.
yeah, so, what we have to do is we have to actually go through this process where we send out an addendum to everything, right? So we can't just answer one question individually in an email, one firm. We have to basically send it out to every firm who's requested a project manager. So, yeah.
Can a board member be part of the pre-bid meeting or not?
Can I ask that question?
Okay. No, I actually don't know the answer to that question. I can certainly ask.
I
What's going on?
We've had board members part of the pre-bid meeting before, typically they leave it to us, but
In my experience, it's been,
yeah, it's just been,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, it has been to just management, but
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I've gone to one of them, but it's very rare for anyone other than the field services team to do it, just because a lot of questions are asked are very technical. If they have any questions about timelines or anything that's in the instructions. They don't reach out to us typically, but as far as the more the pre-bid meeting, it's more just so that they have, if they have any questions about the scope of services, that's their time to ask. As far as, I mean, if one of you does want to go, I mean, I can certainly look into it, I don't know.
Well, two of us, it's gonna be real quick, but.
Well, two, you cannot go.
Absolutely,
It's definitely
no,
not. I mean, it's possible one, I can't say for sure that is permissible, but, I can look into that.
Yeah, I'll just,
Okay.
we'll draw Charles.
No, I don't need to go, I was more just
Yeah.
curious about the process and just listening, but.
Pre-bid
no, I'm
meeting
fine.
is typically, will you be holding that on site typically? Or do you hold it at the office, or is that via
No,
conference?
this is gonna be conference, yeah, it's gonna be, Zoom. They're essentially going to, because we've had issues with this in the past, sometimes, you guys care, I guess, but, you issue these RFPs and we make them mandatory, and then they get mixed up with, because GMS has multiple offices, right, so they go to the wrong office or something like that. We have a situation where it's mandatory and nobody showed up, right?
Yeah.
So, just to make it easy, it's optional and it's gonna be on Zoom. So anyone that reaches out, we'll send them a Zoom invite, and, they'll know when to come.
Huge technology.
Yeah.
What about the June 10th meeting, the public meeting to open bids? Is that-
So
That's
that'll
only just a formality.
That'll be open at, the GMS Tampa office. And typically what happens, all the bids that have been submitted, we have to open it, record it, where every vendor gets, typically every vendor is in that room, they want to see everyone else's bid, because it's a formal bid and it's a lot of money. So it's, so there will be, say we get six vendors will be there, we'll open them publicly to
Read
everyone's
the
prices,
prices on the record.
read the prices. And then as soon as we have that, we provide you with, I will be providing you with a summary of like, here's so-and-so, because we've got everyone bidding apples to apples.
Right.
It's not just their contract, we can just say, look,
Yeah.
essential services, extra services, and then you've got like mulching, things that, however that is, detail, we can provide you what everyone's provided, and you can be able to.
You guys won't be expecting to go, if that was,
That was my question is,
Yeah.
are we allowed to, or would one
Yeah,
of us
it's-
be allowed to attend?
Yeah, I guess
Or
you-
can multiple?
I mean, on multiple, I mean,
No, you
I don't know,
don't-
how do you guys notice that typically? I mean, it's not usually a meeting of the board of supervisors, so I doubt you would notice it that way. I mean, I think it's supposed to put it.
Either look, it's recorded, so it's kind of, if you wanna wait a few hours, then we'll provide you what the summary is. It's very not, the only thing that gets a little.
Nothing really happens. so.
Not really, it just gets very interesting when you've got one contractor that's up here, and then you've got one down here, and you're like, oh wow, what's going on, what did they miss?
100,000 in the wild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I get that, but I think for me, part of hiring a vendor is hearing the vendor, like hearing the owner do a presentation of some kind,
So-
hearing their personality,
So,
hearing.
the 17th
Not
board
just
meeting,
what's on paper.
the evaluation and proposals will be, received, so your name, every vendor that's submitted will have the opportunity to present.
Okay.
Like, we will absolutely be out here to present with you guys.
But also to that point, though, so they can talk to you at that meeting, but they're not allowed to like make change to their proposal or add it. And they really have to stick to, because you're supposed to make a decision based on 4 points of the proposal. That's the board, that's what, you do now. Some attorneys might say, you guys can't talk at all, others, a little bit more loose with it. I just make sure, and I'll say something on the record, that, they're not allowed to supplement anything. It's in their proposal, they're not allowed to make any revisions, change the price, anything like that. That's what they can be disqualified, right? So, this is, again, just because it opens us up to liability, a bid protest, we don't want to deal with this problem. So, they can make presentations, but they have to, the things they're presenting have to be like,
What
have-
they already presented.
what they basically already sent you in the proposal.
So I think her point though is more of, you're seeing the person, you're seeing the type of person they are, the business owner that they are, how interested they are. So you have somebody that comes in here and they give you some 5-minute spiel of crap. We use the roofing guys. One of them gave us a 3-minute spiel of crap. And then we had another one that was super duper detailed, gave us a ton of information to make us feel comfortable. And it's that process of, well, they're here, but they bid on it, they're not really interested. This guy he's hungry, he's eager.
What do
he
you think
wants
they'll
to-
be like to work with?
Right.
Yes, and then,
Are they gonna get paid?
yeah, that's totally okay, and I just wanted to kind of explain, because I know Glenn likes negotiating over here, so.
I know I can't
So we
negotiate
can't
on
do
that.
that, but that's the only reason I was bringing it up.
I leave my gloves and all.
But that
I
makes.
assume our
that makes
agenda,
sense.
that meeting would be much shorter if we had a lot
Jason, will there be
of-
a short list process so that at the next meeting will be down to a handful of potential options after you guys qualify the bids?
Marshall, are we planning to do that in this process, creating a short list and getting rid of, I don't know if that's we have the opportunity to do that with this RFP.
No, we typically don't do that, you know.
So
I mean, so qualifying the proposal, the board does that, right? It's not like there's a pre-screening process with management. I suppose, you might be able to do that, but my firm has never done that.
So I guess we just need to make sure our agenda next time is very short, if we have.
Just landscape specific.
Well, I mean, if we get 3 bids or we get 10.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If we got 3, it's
Yeah.
whatever. If we get, there's a whole bunch of people.
There are certain things when you get the mum and pop thinking that they can do it, but there are, when they read it properly and they see the insurance requirements, and that's what a pretty big meeting can be.
Yeah.
We've turned up, like, there's been $1 million contract, landscape contracts, and then someone shows up and just goes, can't do this, and then they leave, right? But, that's what the pre-bid meeting's gonna be about, and typically the people that show up to the pre-bid meeting are the ones that are the interested parties to actually bid. So we're.
One other question I have on the RFP real quick. One other thing that I didn't see in there, maybe this goes along the line of the site guidelines, but, I think Cardinal has been doing a lot of the Spanish moss cleanup, so like basic tree cleanup, I think. And I didn't really see that in there anywhere. Is that an unusual thing to add to the contract?
We cover that in detail work, right?
We can, so just with that, just under, you got the palm trimming, because I do know that it was added,
But I don't think it's.
it's not detailed on this one, but I did see that it was a requirement under,
Okay, I definitely think it's somewhere.
no, but I know that I'm saying, I don't know if it was part of this one, but I have seen that other where Spanish moss was an issue, and it was requested to add that part of the RFP, how much it would cost.
Okay. Because you've worked with Cardinal, do a lot of cleanup, right? I just, and if it, maybe that needs to be a special project once a year or something.
Is that,
But-
and maybe Marshall, is there a way that we want to add that, like,
We can do it right now.
so full disclosure, the ad does run tomorrow, so people will begin, 21st, tomorrow at noon or 10 o'clock? Yeah. Start reaching out, we can make changes right now without, actually having to issue an addendum, so if you guys want to add something in scope of services real quick, we can do it.
You said that's something that's not necessarily standard and would probably make a price
We-
increase.
Depends on how significant the Spanish march
So-
is in Europe or in English.
So there was two ways of doing it. The district of Zephyr Ridge over here, they added spraying to the moss to their contract because they saw that they reoccurring every 6 months for spraying it, so we added it to their RFP. I think what we do, I think we get through the RFP, that could be a specialty item. If a lot of it, they're not, it will be on it's usually every 6 months that I've seen it when a district's had issues. But I think we, rather than overloading it, or maybe messing with a document that we know is good to go, we can just.
Yeah, maybe to your point, it's mostly cleaned up now, I don't know how often.
You
it
definitely
comes
will
back,
want
but-
someone to maintain that, but I
Yeah.
think once we picked our vendor, and it's like, how much more is that gonna be, like, just to get the Spanish moss
Okay.
added, I think that would be the smartest way to go. Alrighty, so with that, do we have a motion to approve and advertise the landscape RFP as presented?
Second.
And Roberts, second by
Alright, really good. Rose, was there any discussion? Steve, anything else to add?
No, do you have an experience sheet here in your proposal? I didn't see that.
Yeah, there's something, typically it's even, in the instructions, we say there's a bare minimum of, years that you're doing this, but yeah, there's
There's a great.
yeah, there'll be one of the forms will include it as well, in total dollar amount of the contract, whether they've served any other, CDDs.
Yeah, there's actually a project name, it's actually
References.
they've
Yeah.
got, and it's,
I see it,
yeah, page 83, it asks for, 5 references. Alright.
Well, that's where the experience is, it starts in 73.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what proposals
All in favour?
are.
Any motion passes, we're going to get that one advertised. Are you wanting GMS to get that out, or are we doing it?
Oh, yeah, I don't know how to publish the advertisement, so I
did already submit it.
No, it's already, I did already send it over to Nicole, she should already have it, with whoever you guys typically publish within Passaic County, so it's set to run tomorrow.
No, it is, yeah, I could, yeah, we managed to get that done beforehand. No, it's, look, I think, look, it is like a scary thing, but I think we look at it as a positive, that like, you've got beautiful landscape area, we can really find that new vendor that's really gonna be motivated to get you guys where you need to be, so. Let's focus more on that than, holding our breath, I guess, on that. But, the next item that we've got is consideration resolution 25-5, approving the fiscal year budget and setting the public hearing. So in your agenda packet, you will see we provided a proposed budget for all of your consideration. I know that it was requested to provide, I know Glenn got a hold of the budget and wanted to, there was some modifications in there. So we want to discuss these ultimately as we see it. We're under the impression that we are going to have an increase in your landscaping. We are anticipating, do we know how much that is? We really don't know. Clayton did throw out a number that potentially your landscape could go to 220, 225, just based on what we got with this and kind of meet in the middle. One thing that the district has done a very good job of is obviously that your reserve bucket is, your contribution each year is, we have in there for your fiscal year budget of 109,000. You guys did do a lot of capital projects, but you did do the increase to obviously help accommodate that. With the expenditures and the anticipated balance of 930.26, your reserve fund is going to be where your reserves was and where you're anticipated to be in September of 26 is at 172,000. But your major projects, you've got a new roof, you've got your pool that's redone. Playground was huge.
Pay for it though.
But yeah, like
Have we paid for it?
No?
So obviously, in your budget, obviously we provided where we anticipate that you guys will finish in September, but then also proposed budget for fiscal year 26. Glenn, I think if you want to go through, I know that you did some work.
Quickly, touch base, I just want to say one thing. So, every year, obviously, we need to adopt a budget, and we need to have a public hearing. So in addition to the public hearing for the budget, if the assessments, the OM assessments we're levying for the upcoming fiscal year exceed what you had, the highest amount you had noticed in previous fiscal years, you'll also need to have a public hearing for the OM assessments, to levy those OM assessments. I actually don't know the number right now. What was gonna happen if you guys do end up moving, changing this budget? So right now, let's say flat, no change, so I didn't need to look it up. However, if you guys do increase here, then I will need to look it up. I'll look at the previous mail notices we've sent out and determine whether we need to send them again. But,
Keep going.
the actual hearing itself's not a big deal. The reason I do bring it up is because we do have to, so within just the budget, we will publish notice, and just like you're noticing the meeting, we just publish it in the newspaper during circulation in the county in which the district is located. For the assessment hearing, though, we have to actually send out mail notices to each resident. So that can be a bit more pricey. So just wanted you guys to know that, depending on how we do changes, we might have to change up the notice requirements here. The notices.
The updated reserve study, I knew that they said that they could get it started in May. So we're gonna have it back by your adoption of your, because we asked for, sorry?
We don't get it. When are we adopting the?
I'm holding this as late as possible with August meeting. So because we have to adopt by your August 30th. A lot of districts have about 60 days. We have to approve or propose, 60 days has to pass before we can adopt. So,
Well, we technically have until the beginning of the next fiscal year to adopt a budget, and we collect all our assessments on the county tax roll. So we need to actually finalize the assessment roll, send that over to the county so they can collect those assessments in the tax roll. So we need to have finalized it. Actually, it's like early September, late August in most counties. So we'll never actually adopt the budget as late as we could in statute. August, January is the very latest we do it. Yeah.
Okay, so they're gonna do the assessment this month hopefully, and we'll get the report by our next month meeting.
yes, we pushed for it. They did say that they were really far behind, and I did mention that their anticipated date was going to be in May, that they were going to be able to get it started. But I will be hot on their heels to get that, because I'd like to understand, ultimately, your big ticket items have been handled for the most part.
Yeah, I think we have. Probably a big ticket item that we need to focus on, but it would be nice to be able to review the project list that I put together and sent to you along with that study, just to kind of see where we are to figure out.
No, agreed.
How we wanna, if we wanna increase, and if so, how.
So essentially this meeting is more of your high water mark.
Yeah.
And this is where if you set a high water mark, we call it that, where it's, okay, we're going to do an assessment increase, say it's 10% or 5%, whatever.
You're saying this one that's in
Yeah,
our packet?
right.
This one in our packet doesn't increase their
No.
fees at all?
No. But I'm saying, so after this meeting, you're not allowed to go, okay, come at August, and no, we are increasing by 10%. Your proposed budget is your high water mark. This is where you set the high limit, where it's,
This is the
okay.
one that gives notice and makes everybody happy.
Right, I know, but the one that's in our packet says there's no change to fees, and I would anticipate, considering how we lowered, how strict we were this year, we anticipated fees increase next year, right?
Right.
So my concern is that we're gonna send this out,
No.
everybody's gonna see, no, there's no increase in fees, when really, we probably are gonna have to increase fees.
So at this meeting, if the board said, you know what, we want to put more monies away,
Okay,
is that
you should change it.
correct? Yeah, absolutely.
And now is the time, so you can always,
Now's the time.
so you can always whittle it down, right? So if you set it, you know, 2 million, so you can always bring it down to 1 million at the next meeting.
Okay.
It's far more difficult to go up from
Got it.
here, so that's why you go with the high one.
So
We
it's
can
time,
still make changes.
so yeah,
And
absolutely.
you could theoretically make it higher, just be very difficult, and we have to renotice the whole thing, and that
Yeah.
can create problems. So that's why you really want to focus on the highest you could contemplate, I think the next year, that's what you want to set it at right now.
Jason, that budget was not attached to an agenda that Amanda sent out. Can you please email it to me so I can?
Engineer, did you say that you printed a project list?
Yeah, there is one. Like, we have the action items list, but then there's also another,
No, I
so
figured
kind of,
Jason, what I sent you.
Next phase was there.
no, I provided a project list that I put together.
Excel spreadsheet that had
No, I I provided one of just like things that I had. That's kind of like the project list that I had of items that we've been potentially looking at.
Yeah.
Can you pass it out? Steve, I didn't ignore you there, I'm just getting the packet sent to you, okay? And then, whilst we're here, Glenn, do you want to just go ahead with your potential thoughts and changes that you have?
Yeah, I want to wait for it.
So I guess I'm a little frustrated because I gave you an Excel spreadsheet and had a bunch of different tabs of these are things that we really need. These are wants for landscaping and for the community. And I thought we were going to review that as part of this to help us say, what do we want to prioritize for the next year? And I thought we were bringing that to this meeting so that we could potentially do a budget that included those items. And so this isn't all that hopeful because I don't really, playground's already been, playground should be maybe on there, that's already budgeted, we have.
So you want to do capital projects part of your agenda, like you want to put that in your budget, or are you saying that you want to reserve for?
Like, I wouldn't consider almost any of it as a capital project. This is all O&M.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Irrigation replacement for 250,000 plus?
That's almost that, but
Okay.
like tree trimming, that's O&M, full paper seal, O&M, chilling.
Tree trimming would not be, so you're gonna do the boulevard trimming as you wanna put that in your O&M budget for 64,000, that's what you paid the last couple of years. If you wanna put it in there, that's fine, we can make the modifications, it's not a problem. I thought that would be more of a, would it be capital, if you wanna put it in O&M, you're just gonna see how we were doing it. If you add, that would push your budget, pretty extensively.
Well, that's what I'm saying is the spreadsheet I gave you had needs versus wants for both landscaping and like clubhouse projects. So to me, that helps us see, okay, yeah, maybe we want to paint the monuments, but that's more of a want, in my opinion. What are our needs and how many needs can we do versus wants? Maybe they're capital projects, maybe they're not, but I think I have a lot more on my list than what's here. And I don't have the list with me because I thought that was already going to be provided, so.
Yeah, I've got it. Is this the one that was sent in February? How do you guys want to go ahead and create a document for projects? Okay, but I still have it, obviously the full deck, ceiling, got that one, re-slinging of the chairs, I think that we've got proposals that re-slinging's actually already taken place. Striping.
We're supposed to table it for this meeting.
Right.
But, I mean, again, yeah, we probably need to review almost all of the pool furniture out there. So again, that's probably a need, and that's not necessarily on here, and it's probably a need for next year,
When I think of a capital project, I think of something like that, like we need to spend $150,000 on pool furniture, tables, chairs, that's a capital project, tangible thing. O&M would be more of maintenance, operating the maintenance, right? You're maintaining trees. That's O&M. I mean, we could call it capital expense, but then.
I thought it was like on it was a bit unforeseen, like.
Tree maintenance, thing, I'm trees grow, we've got maintain, whatever, but I understand your frustration. There's a lot of things that we can do, and we can make sure we're budgeting properly for that, whether it is a capital expense or whether we're gonna make an operation expense.
Pool deck ceiling, is that going to be a maintenance item every year?
Probably not.
So I would recommend that you put that as a capital project. I had that I've got it as 12. I saw that there was other bids that were in between that 15,000, that was just one item there. Tennis court and pickleball court restriping. That would be a capital project in my opinion, because it's one every 5 years. And these are items that we could, add, we could put it to your reserve. So again, this is the high water mark. If we earmark how much that we think these projects are gonna be, look, this is not set in stone, we can add more line items. We wanna get a little bit busier on you've got district line items in here that you had from the prior board where it was broken out and it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. And that's why we're here to talk about potential changes, adding, do we want to add further monument landscaping, monument painting? Monument painting for me, again, that is more of a capital line item because you paint them once every 7 years apparently. Monument landscaping, that could be, I think that would be more of a, as a beautification, and I would absolutely have that in part of your O&M. Shilling removal, that was a one and done deal, hopefully. We've done some of it, but there's still a large majority of it needs to be moved, and that was where you've already spent 15,000, I think the whole quote was 65, so that's where I got the 50. So irrigation replacement, that's just part of your reserve study, but that is a big shot in the dark that I think that it could cost that much. I hope it doesn't. I hope I'm very wrong in that instance, but
While we're gonna pause, what I am going through today, when I got this stuff back from Patty this morning, it increases the total expenditure bottom line by $75,000. That's accounting quite a bit of that in the landscape change alone. There's $195,000 that was within there. I had put that number at $230. Hopefully our bids don't come back and buy it, find it cheaper, but that also says that mark for at least that bucket alone from that expectation. So I mean, half of that almost is just the changes specifically for landscape alone.
Len, did you send that back to me?
I did not.
Okay, so I
can.
no, that's fine. I just don't have that. My budget, just so for everyone's aware, Janelle, the budget that I've got in front of me is the one that doesn't have an assessment increase. So I don't. We're from there as it's building. I know Glenn has his one where it's got an increase in there. I just don't want to get mixed up like where we're at.
No, I get it, and I went through it, but I didn't have a chance to really dive in. I don't have suggestions right now.
That works. The changes that I've made put the assessment increase somewhere between 75 and 120 on say 65 wide, and then was 72. 85, $85. And then on the 55 wide, it was somewhere between 72 and like 100. The numbers that I was playing with. You've got to play math games with the formula the way that it's on there. So I'm just looking at the net expenditures number and then playing with the formula for the percentage to try to get that number to match. That way we're not in a situation where it looks like we're operating in red. So I'm just trying to get it to line up. So it's approximately 9% increase. So
I was doing right now, I'm looking at these, but same thing like you're saying.
yeah, 9 to 10% is kind of where it's at. But we want to get in the weeds with the numbers. I was going to pass to.
And that was the higher, like, being very generous, the proposed higher, that would be the increase, or is that like?
You super generous, and then you're looking at 15%. I mean, it just depends on where we want to go. And any expense, it's hard to see with this to know what we're dumping in the capital expenses, into that bucket. Just quick, do you have it pulled up on that, chance? I've got it pulled up on both of them, next to each other on both my screens, but it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely are gonna need some more.
Like the biggest change is landscape maintenance from, and we, according to this, the budgeted amount was 204,561. And then our anticipated was 197,603. I put that at 230.
What line, what?
That's, line number 51 under the general fund tab that you got that.
Page 42,
Oh,
landscape maintenance. That's the second column of the actual cell phone. So if you're looking at it, it'd be fourth column over, that would be the projected through 9/30/25.
Community walkers on the, yeah. On the expenditure,
Down to the bottom of the explanation.
So
Oh, the
just,
explanation, yeah, it's still on there.
just to give a, so there was the high and the lows, so I just went with the 55-foot lots, Glenn, which is the 465 units at the $70 that you had. Okay, I have that as a rough look. And then the $85 for the 190 units, the bigger 65-foot lots. That was roughly an assessment increase of 50,395 overall. Now the higher number, when you went to 100 and 125, you're at 71,700, like $375. Typically, if you average that, you've got 664 homes times by X. Average, like that's where the lower number that you said was 50,000, and then you got 70,000 for the higher number, which
What's the percentage, Jason?
I think
You said about 330.
it's about 10%.
You said it's 330,475?
So 50,395.
Yeah, you said that it was like divided by 664. But
But it's you have to be. It's done by ERU values. ERU values mean there's a bigger benefit for 65 wide units compared to 55, right?
Do you remember, anybody remember what the percent increase was last year?
Let me just.
4 or 5%.
I can put. I can go back. Yeah. I'll look because I can see what was adopted and then just kind of give a.
I mean, to be honest, the $2,000 increase doesn't seem like it's enough.
I don't disagree, I was still being conservative.
Yeah, I mean, based on the landscaping's huge.
Well, that's not.
Well, if that's 25, yeah.
That's landscape wise either.
Exactly.
Tree lifting or any of that.
Well, it was like, I had increased the landscape contingency last year, we had it at 20, we projected to spend 43. I added that number to 45, that's probably not enough. Flower will change from 9 to 12, mulching from 8 to 16, I doubled that.
Yeah.
That was, we were way conservative, and we've been way conservative, I think the year before we were 85,
Yeah.
but before this last one. Irrigation maintenance, I've got at 24, amenity center landscape on Black Creek at 18, that was a weird bucket.
Hey, Glenn, would you have landscape maintenance?
I put it at 230, Steve. That was kind of the highest expectation from some conversations with Clayton. I think he's expecting 215 to 220, but I did say high.
Okay, I was at 240, so we're close, and then I think I heard, sorry, it's hard to hear, but I think I heard you say mulching need to be increased too.
I doubled it.
Yeah, likewise, same here.
Then I took the landscape contingency and took it from 20K to 45, but it probably really realistically needs to be 60.
Yeah. Conservation maintenance, I increased by 5,000 to 15. General maintenance, the same thing, increased by 5, and irrigation maintenance was really one that I bumped up a little bit, because we're just getting the condition part. I mean, I think we're gonna probably uncover a lot with the new landscape contract on irrigation that needs to be corrected.
I agree with that 100%. I'm kind of afraid of what that's going to look like.
So I think if you add all that up, we're probably looking at about 10% increase.
It would, the quick dirty math on the back, so, let me go back and find the number of math on wage increase. Let me make this bigger. Let's see, assessments. So net expenditures would be 1.31789.65. I basically mirrored what you had, Steve. So we would need to pull that amount in. I changed. So the increase percentage, at the way Patty had it set was 104 point some number or whatever for her math. I've got it at 109. That's not enough now. At 100, so at 115, so that's about a 12% increase. That puts us just slightly over the net expenditure amount. It puts us at 1.150. Some numbers.
So if you're right there at 15%, again, this is the point where it's high watermark. It comes up August and then go lower. But last year you were 4% increase.
It was more.
4%. So
Yeah, and also just so you guys know, the high watermark only applies to the total amount of O&M assessed levy. So if you just did, you don't have to have like all the categories figured out right now. If you did 15% across the board, you can still play with those numbers when you get to August.
I think
right?
that's better because
It's significant. Well, I still don't think it's that much of an increase, but.
I think that gives us a little bit of cushion, Jason, as a high water market. Like I said, obviously, we're gonna uncover what the true cost of the landscaping is gonna be, and that's really the unknown that we've got to figure out over the next couple of months. So I'm gonna agree with the 15%. I don't know about the other board members.
Yeah, I agree.
That rough math, 187.65 wide and 159.55 wide. I mean, we want to set the high water mark just slightly higher than that at 17%. I can do the math on that one real quick. I would rather shoot way high, and I am sorry to the public. But I mean, it's I'd rather shoot way high.
my telephone number and my email that they will call.
It'll be, well, all of our emails, all that number, just, you know, I mean, we did go very, very conservative last year, and
Especially during all the massive projects.
if we spend $400,000, I mean, like that, and the pool is beautiful, splash pad is beautiful.
But take the
Playground eventually will be beautiful.
But the thing is, take the credit that you actually you did anticipate putting money away into your reserve bucket. You are putting
There's still over $100,000.
you are putting a decent whack, like over 10% into your contribution, which is, that's a nice place to be, that you guys are able to do that. So,
And as much as people feel unhappy, I always feel like the neighborhood itself has appreciated, and so it makes sense that like the spending would also increase to elevate the, you know.
Well, everything's increased. I mean, and I don't love this increasing, but we have our pool guy charging us more for chemicals. Yeah, I mean, everything's getting towards like an increase. Yeah.
So, quick, and this is about a 17% increase. It changes everybody's monthly payment to their taxes, but $18.52 or $15. Right? That's still being, in my opinion, extremely conservative of what your actual dollar amount is. I know a lot of people get upset when they see this huge monster number and this big change. Oh my God, it's $300, whatever it is. When you break it down to the month, well, Bennett explained this last year. The form that goes out is extremely confusing, and it looks like it went up 250%. I remember that conversation last year, so there was a lot of very, very upset people. And it's even crazy for us to even understand how that formula and the math and that paperwork goes out that everybody, especially you guys, get to see. And I think 5 people for showing up tonight, very beneficial.
So the number is basically whatever we set at 17% is the max number of what your O&M is. So when they call me and say, why are you raising my taxes by 2,500?
Right.
I say, it's not me, it's you guys. But then,
That's 17%.
but then that's the max number that it can go up. But that's where, I wish that it's kind of a statutory requirement that this letter details it out, like how it does.
Didn't we include like the FAQs or something last time, or like similar?
I think we talked about it.
We did something, well, there's other districts where a board member would like to work with management in providing something to the CDD website that residents screenshot and put on their Facebook pages and say, this is why we're increasing, But I do like Janelle, to your point, I thought it was very, that's very true. When you Regan said it about the community being elevated, things cost more. Like it is unfortunate. But again, if we get through this, we get Steve's point. You found out that your landscaping didn't increase as much, but the nice thing with the landscape bid, it actually provides you numbers for the next, I think it's 5 years that it asks for, is it?
5.
Yeah, so which again, that can help to help budget for future years. And obviously, but not wanting to disappoint, but there is disappointment that the project list that was provided definitely needs to be better communicated on our half back with Janelle about what we thought was a good comparison. It's not, but that's where I'd like to talk about that at a future meeting. But with the budget, there are a lot of line items in here that just seem a little wasteful. We can add as many as we want with a 17% potential increase. That's enough monies in there to really start filling up these buckets and start really pricing for them. We'll have an updated reserve study too. I think we'll be.
When is that reserve study due? When we get that back?
Well, they started it. They started it in May because they're so far behind. But they will be. I'm hopefully pushing that we definitely get it by your. I want it by your June meeting if possible. Coming out to sites actually reviewing what half the work they did just over 3 years ago. I think should be easier. But again, I don't know. No, but that's where Marshall will be obviously following him around when he does his reserve study. So the board set, there was 50, there was 10, 15, but 17 as a worst case. Recommendation is to hit it as early as possible because 2% can.
2% on a $1.1 million budget is a lot. I would rather hit it really high and Janelle out. Had a little disagreement last year, and we came to an agreement, and we worked with each other to make things happen, and I'm sure we can do that again this year. Make the community what it needs to be. So
What's the benefit? You and
No
I
promises though.
there may need to be alcohol involved.
Glenn, you and I kind of talked about this before the meeting. The other upshot of this, when you increase it pretty significantly, as I mentioned, the notice requirements that are triggered when you increase the assessment amount over the assessment cap, the assessment cap is set by the notice, not actually what you adopt. So if it's a 17% increase, so if you notice that you're going to say, just to make the numbers easy, $2 million total, you end up putting it down like 180, and in the very following year, you increase it from your adopted budget at 190, but not past that 2 million, you wouldn't need to actually send out a notice, right? So you would save a little bit of money, on the back of it, not having to notice it, again, despite the fact there's an increase. Because, I mean, realistically, prices will go up every year. If you only have marginal increases every year, you know, you'll be having to send out a lot of notices, so. All right, Steve, any more input before we call for a motion?
Nope, I'm good.
So with that, do we have a motion to approve resolution 25-5, approving the fiscal year budget, proposed budget, at a 17% increase across the board, and that will be setting a public hearing for your August 19th meeting, 6 p.m. at this location. Gross, all in favor? All right, motion passes. Know that that's not the funnest part of the meeting. If we do need to come back and have a designated meeting to the budget, just working on it, I think that's fine, definitely before the August meeting, that it's just designated that.
Like we talked about that last year, and all that kind of shut down, I think it's extremely important to work up.
I think it would be helpful, I mean, especially on areas that we don't necessarily agree.
Right.
It's easier to talk it out rather than say, here's my proposed budget, here's your proposed budget.
Right.
It's just-
And trying to do it at a meeting, I know we tried to do it at a meeting last year, it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
If it's, we're here just dedicated just for that, we're here for an hour and a half.
I think we would do that at your July meeting, reason being is after that you've got your budget number for your highest, for your landscaping, because you'll have it back for that meeting.
Oh.
So you'd have it in July. Because then you've got July, everyone has those working spreadsheets, whatever, together. Put it up on this, I'll administer, I'll put the one on the screen, and then, you know, board members, if we can hash that out, and then by the August meeting, we'll have a really good understanding what we're doing. All right?
Sounds good.
Great. So I have that noticed. If we do it, why don't we just, look, we're definitely gonna have that meeting, right? And I think what we do, we have a July meeting, workshop dedicated just for that. Do we want it the same as the regular, so your regular meeting will be July 15th? Do we do it like on the same?
We'll do it on the same day, we're gonna do it like a week prior.
We can do it a week before, I'm on town now.
Yeah, I can't do it this prior.
That would be the 8th of July. That would be Tuesday.
Yeah, if they're both out of town, I mean, it's critically important, both of them, we all line up, so we're.
Do we need a quorum or?
It's a workshop, you don't need a quorum for that.
I was so critically important.
Steve, are you out that whole week?
I'm out of July, basically 13th through the end of the month,
Well, they're talking about,
2 weeks prior.
they're talking about the week of the 7th.
Yeah, I'm available that week.
I have to be later.
Would you want it on an earlier day? Or what would you prefer?
I like it later than the 8th.
Later than the 8th?
Yeah. We'd have to do
Yeah.
that Tuesday.
10th? 10th of July?
Yeah, I'm out like through 11th, so.
Cool.
So it'd have to be the 8th.
So it would be the 8th or the 9th. When are you out?
9th through 11th, but depending on 9th, it would maybe be possible, depending on time. If it's early, it's later or something, but I'm going to find that on the.
I'm on the 7th.
I think Janelle wanted it later, but
Yeah, that's gonna be pushing it for me. We can do it on the 8th.
So like a pretty decent consensus on the 8th.
okay. Megan?
Yeah, I'd like to limbo on a little bit, as far as I know.
Your day at a time.
Okay, excellent. So we've got that advertised. We'll get that advertised 6 o'clock. We want to make it earlier. 5, or do we want it 6? Sorry? 6 good for everyone? Alrighty. Great.
Which date was that, Jason?
July 8th. Alrighty.
I mean, if anything's possible.
Okay, moving into the next item was updates from the engineer. There's nothing further brought to our attention from the engineer to report on. The next item that we have was the field manager's report. I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Marshall to handle.
So,
Good evening, everybody. As he said, my name is Marshall, I'm the deputy field manager. If you have anything you see, please get my contact information, let me know, I'll do it as soon as I can. Towards that end, we have an action item list, as I kind of orient on this property, get these kind of put up. There's also a couple of proposals for fence that covers the equipment shed. It was held, it was solicited by Dallas, who was able to be here tonight, and we'll go through those towards the end. I'll start with the fence real quick, since I don't have that on my action item list, I don't want to forget about it. The fence, one side of the shed, or equipment area that we have, had a fence that was actually owned by VA, and that's an actual entity. And the day we did the fence, that side of the fence is gone, so we had a three-sided enclosure. So this proposal, I recommend going to one there, the same one that we leave the introductory enclosure on the front. For $12.75 for the gate fence, and covers that fourth side so that the equipment is secured again. Looks 40 might be good.
43 feet.
Yes, sir. Correct.
it's 2550, the right total. 2550 total.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I apologize, one is 1275, the bid from Advanced Fence and More is literally half the.
Yeah, so I apologize, I said that.
That's okay. Okay, so you're recommending we go at 1468?
I think chain link fence is chain link fence.
Yeah. Okay.
Motion. Second.
Alright, there was a motion by Glenn, and there was a second by Ann. All in favor? Okay. Steve, was there anything to add to that? I don't think you have that proposal in front of you, correct?
I don't, that's one more reason.
Alrighty, so that's a no for you? Or you're okay with that? They move forward with the chain link fence?
Thanks, I'm just told no because I don't have anything.
Alrighty? The motion passes 4-1.
I'll jump into the next thing, the action item, that's okay. So first off, board wall repair and refresh. I believe this is that one in front of you. We're looking at that supporting dock outside. That dock is, really could use concealed again, the bare minimum is clean, concealed. I've also got a roof fender for the gazebo area at the far end. Get some feel, we can find pricing on that. It's one I've used in Polk County for a couple of things that came in both responsive and still was better. So if we
Reach out to the vendor that does it on the phone.
I don't. So I'll add them to that list. But I started with one that I had used previously, was familiar with, just to get oriented and get you guys an idea of what they say, and then we can split things over that if you want to pursue with that.
I think they had previously bid it. I think they had previously bid it when they were here, when they were last year or something.
I'm gonna go look at it again. I'm new and I'm oriented, so, but I'm tracking the time that we're kind of gone, taken care of. Then electrical troubleshooting, we have a couple items that came in, some electrical issues. We've had maintenance staff do what they can, so escalated to an electrician to make sure that everything's done.
The
And
ones in the,
Lanai,
yeah, in the Lanai or out in Purple?
there's the plugs and the two pavilions areas.
So Tom had those looked at and repaired sometime last year.
We by Deans, like something like that. Deans has done some work, and I have the invoices that I was tracking.
It was about 6 months ago when Tom had that done.
And there's some other issues, so I'm trying to find out what the root of that issue is. All I know is that some work was done, something else could have happened since that work was done.
Okay.
There were other issues. My understanding is there was a fire in one of those pavilions at some point, for whatever reason. I apologize if that's not correct. I am orienting and trying to be out, but the point is that there is an issue over there and we're trying to sort it out. There's a few items, so the easiest way for me to address that is going to be an electrician who's going to troubleshoot and do something that our maintenance staff is not necessarily. They're good, but we want to make sure that everything is working on the back end. If it's not a bigger issue, it's hiding, it's causing that. That's the big issue. Changing outlet, no problem. Changing the tank, no problem. It's an electrical issue, but wire's bad, have someone down the line, it's a short coming on, that's what electricians look at.
I think I look at even just at one point, when did they start doing the removal of the play area? I don't know if that's part of what that could be the issue over there. Something that was just it could be like, well, they did say like obviously it's in general facility, it's out there where the issue is. With their removal, did that create the issue? We don't know. So we got to troubleshoot it and figure out where we go from there.
Well, there you go, maybe, yeah, that's up, so, probably just thinking about the gates out.
So I was saying about our discussion when we said about the play area potentially, that could they removed the whole play area, it could have been part of the issue. So
Like I said, I can't attest to exactly what the issue is, so we're getting some getting in. I've contacted Deans, Owens, and Bolt is another one. Bolt was just out here today, I'm gonna see what they said. They were gonna give me a hard estimate, they wouldn't give me an hour, like, they would do it an hour, I'm gonna kind of get a feel for which one, and we'll move forward with everyone.
So one's the practical, one's T and M, and one's here, flat cost.
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
So one's T and M, and the other's just a flat cost.
Yeah.
When they were out here, did they also look at and bid the quad for the entrance out here that I've asked for 6 months?
So
That's not for you.
I've got to see if Bolt has looked at it. I was poking around. I was going to start with checking out the photo cell real quick.
Right, this is for the nebulous stuff, so.
Oh, I rejected it. I'm sorry.
Well, to catch you up on that, not nebulous problem. And apologies if you didn't get the correct information on that, but to take you back to December, there was extra plugs for all the Christmas stuff and all that or whatever. Where Cardinal had cut the line that comes off of, whatever it's called, obelisk. And so when that little duct for a service call, they cut it, patched it up, tied it into the Christmas light plug box that they had out there. And we're replacing Tom and UMS plugs to the quad at the bottom of the obelisk to power that, and then also to be able to power the unit that's on the main monument for the vendors separately. He got bids, I don't know why, or where we're at with it, but I think it's $100 or something. But that's what needs to be done to fix the nebula on the obelisk.
Okay.
That was already approved by the $72.50 at our last meeting.
It was approved? Okay, I couldn't remember, thank you for that. You're better at this than me.
I'll chase that down. If you don't mind, after the meeting.
Sure.
Just give up on that.
Yeah.
Before you leave.
Happy to show you whatever we're out there too.
Beyond that, I did some troubleshooting the front entrance at Collier. I'm gonna skip real quick and jump down to Dupree Lakes since we're on that topic.
Sure.
At the Collier entrance, I went there and checked out, one of my items out. Gem lighting has had an issue in one of them. I'm talking Nebula specifically to find out if that's a control box issue or not.
Yeah, I was losing the save timer. When I was messing with it the other day, I got it back on, and it seems like the timer's not coming on, which the timer's part of their stuff, but like in the app, it showed timer's right, and it mainly comes on, mainly comes off, but the timer's not set, or not, the timer's not firing on the office itself.
Interesting. There's a photo cell on that. The photo cell covers the
Not on the gemstone stuff. All the nebula lighting is a completely separate everything.
I'll get with you on that. When I was checking it, when the photo cell was engaged, the gem lighting on the tower came on, but not on the monument. The monument flickered and then shut off.
You talking about that light, or you talking about the lights that are on the roof?
The underside roof, the gem lights that shut down.
You know, they're not supposed to be on any photo cell, they're based on timer, they don't talk about that.
Let me get with you after that. The project's not we will get on the same page, change it down more efficiently, some exact information I don't have, I can get it from you.
Sure.
If you don't mind. Other than that, odds and ends, I'll jump back in. Buckets replacement, or not replacement, refresh is a better word, I would say. The fiberglass, is a little bit of fiberglass up there, the whole structure is pretty much fiberglass. And has a little touch of repairs that I'd like to pursue later on in the year. It's busy season, it'll hold out right now. So we just want to clean up those buckets. I'm talking to Sherwin's for a wet coat. I don't think fabric coat's a good choice. Not the type of material, long term, I think that a wet coat, proper marine grade primer, that top coat would be better. And then the guy, the top coat is just color, just touched up year to year. So I think it's less expensive because that paint's can fade every so many years. The bright colors you don't want to be in the sun. White's fine. The colors, it's going to fade frequently, so something gets less expensive, it's easy to maintain. Keep it year after year in the off season, is what my goal is. And I'll wait for feedback from them. Stone replacement, there's some stones in the drain outside, that will be sourced from Seth and Rock and Gravel. It's right up by the pool area, sold by the pallet. I'm gonna check on which one matches one of the rocks. I don't want to truck. I'll go by there on the way, down to Polk County, and find out, and I'll bring the rest back to that. It's needed, slow enough to get it done. And design refresh, I just made a list on going around, and I know that there was a UV treatment that was applied, reused, they took from some of those monument signs. It's an option. I'm gonna try and go back through those as I go into grounds and put together something for that as a possible recommendation to spruce things up. I think painting was mentioned at some point, but
The two main entrances are the ones, especially this one, the ones that are most concerned, they're the most faded, especially after you guys cleaned the one that had damage very quickly.
But I think that you need to replace it with livable. If you just clean the hot station on there, and then you need to put the paint right in the top floor. That's fully paint. Color lighting, I just want to double check before to circle back to that. If I may, I believe it was about 15,000 was approved for that project. And it was about $4,000 for removal because the vendor bowed out and they just took care of business. And they did not the guy comes out and secure things so that they don't have exposed wires. So I believe there was a proposal for one for the previous meetings. It was deferred. And if you would just be, how much do you want to spend on that project? I know previously there was a bollard project that was done, it was 28, so that's $600 per bollard.
We only approved 10,000
Yeah.
originally, and
For the
according to the
project.
last meeting, 4,700 has already been spent based on the work that Janice had done.
Yeah. So,
Marshall, Thomas was going to give us an updated map that showed essentially where the current bollards that we replaced are located, along with the ones that were removed, so that we could do a photometric plan with one of my vendors to kind of come up with an ideal situation of how many bollards and potentially get better pricing. But I never got that.
okay.
That's probably the drag on for all of them.
And my goal is to wrap up any review cycles like that I can. So towards that end, it sounds like we want to, you just basically want the ones that are working and one of those ones that were replaced out here in the amenity area pretty much. So I understand. I know it's called a draft around, so they have a lot of them.
Right, the object is to relight, dark areas, like it had been previously, when we talked about, monitoring on LEDs and stuff like that, and not needing a one-for-one replacement. Like it was, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like a 4-to-1. Yeah, it was like.
Yeah, that was one that you guys really didn't.
I brought it back, so this is the one we picked.
That's the one that you guys picked, yeah.
That's the most similar to what's there.
And there's a map, but I think this is the map that they proposed.
That, I believe, the reference to one of these going to replace, it was roughly
Yeah.
20.
It's like twice the amount, the one that you have there now.
This map?
That's like twice the amount, that was with the newer ones, for the same coverage area with the LED.
Yeah, so I think it said they were recommending 20 of them.
20 and 0 degrees.
At, 500, which is like,
If we are amenable, this one is similar style. We should be
it
able to
looks
do,
like what we have now.
we should be able to do, based on that, it would be about $500 per light.
Okay, that's what this quote is too.
So 10,000, so that's the 10 grand, that's the difference, because we're already at 4,700.
Right, and this is 88, 40, 9, 11. Yeah, so that's where the extra 3,500 is.
If the board is amenable, go through and I can bring that map, I just want to push this forward and move forward with replacing and add new bollards.
I would love to put this project today.
So, just to confirm, Steve, you wanted to get that map so you could have one of your vendors look at it?
Yeah, because now, if I'm hearing correctly, we're up to north of 400 and some per bollard. That didn't include the removal cost. And we're pushing $600 per bollard. I know right now in different communities that we've done, we're coming in at 250 to 300 per bollard. But like I said, I don't know what Marshall was referencing in this as far as an alternate. So Jason, maybe you can take a picture and send it to me.
It's the
Yeah,
same one from the last meeting, sorry.
No, they're a little bit different, but they're the same price, they're still $500 a baller.
They look similar, there was a carriage light and then there was a baller.
Steve, I'm texting to you.
The bollards run about $300, I was averaging about, basically the proposals with the cost of labor. I can kind of fine tune that, I just know that the board is particularly not to exceed, just trying to get bollards done.
Yeah, I can see that,
Keep as we
last
can.
meeting that the labor could be reduced too.
I mean, essentially what we're doing is comparing apples to apples, that's more of coverage area if we're replacing 1-1 or if we're doing it like every third, every fourth, still getting maximum coverage area based on updated technology on that might save us. Well, at the same time, I mean, we could do 1 to 3, see what it looks like, we could do 1 to 4, see what it looks like, if it's a situation, we 1 to 4, it'd be easy to slap it back in, but,
Well,
it
see,
has
if
some
the lights
final
are half
concern.
the price.
Yeah, but my only concern is if the cap is still off at the bottom, then we're having to go back, reconnect it, so I'm going to do part of our thing. Not knowing how much distance that is,
I mean, if it was a taller light, that would have
it would catch further out.
bigger area, which I'm still open to looking at taller lights, but I know we want to also look at
Well, uniform comes up.
Steve, did you get that picture?
I did, Jason. That's consistent with what we got out there already. I don't have a problem with it.
So Steve, are you still wanting to see if you guys can price it cheaper than what GMS is pricing it?
That's up to the board members. I'm happy to reach out to some of the vendors that we work with on all of our cars to get pricing. But if the board wants to move forward with it, knowing that we've been kind of looking at this for a long time, I'm good with that as well.
We're going to kick it in the can for almost a year. That's a very large point of contention.
And I just want to say, like, Marshall, thank you for actually detailing and getting this, like, the information what this board really needs in order to be comfortable moving forward. That's what we really, what this board was needing, so.
Yeah, it'd be a year in November.
So really, it's just an extra $30,049 over what's already been approved, right? Sorry, $38,49.
So just double checking, so Marshall, can you just, what would that not to exceed just for the bollards, because we spent the 447 roughly with the removal, but how much is the, for the 20 bollards, and we said, what did we say?
If you're at 500, that'd be 10,000.
So what's that not to exceed number that you're looking at?
10,000, more or less, if we do that. We had 15,000 original, right? We spent 4,000 for the removal of the ones that are bad, and then we actually have 2 more out by the amenity, one by the amenity doors, and one out in the corner was also still bad. And then we can prioritize your spaces, get those lighting around there, and also replace the 2 primarily in the parking lot, which can be the most important. And spec out the trailer space if we can. And like I said, bollards themselves are about $300. We kind of, last thing we did last time, was saying the proposal number, I would say that's doing about $500 for bollards. If you can get more done, we kind of under that, and then it's great to get that one.
Oh, that's 500-ish installed.
Okay, because that's not what the quote says, the labor is completely separate
Yeah.
on this, so this quote is saying, if I'm reading this right, 500 for bollard plus 3,200 for labor and 260 for.
The previous quote that was done.
Yeah, this is the quote we got.
I didn't bring that in the back, but I'm familiar with it, it's the one I was looking
All
at.
yours back.
So yeah, so based on this, when you broke it down, there were 20 of these in there, and you break out the materials down to, let's say, it's 4,900 divided by 20, you're looking at 245 per bollard. But I also know that those particular bollards have gone up in price, if they get in line with the political climate and the things that are going on, can attest. But that one and the one you see in front of you are very similar in price, and that one actually matches the one you have outside.
Yeah.
You can set it to 3 different color deckers, if you decide to change some feature inside you want a different color, you can adjust them. So that can be, whatever one light. So as you phase some of these out, if you decided to get different lighting somewhere here, and you wanted a brighter, to have something in your use, switching from like a soft yellow, which is an older style and incandescent has, to a more daylight style bulb for extra brightness, or Karen's in like a brighter light, you can do that with these. Well, you can also measure and that would be cool, right? Cleaned up, moved on, checked off, but not change the whole structure so you don't have apples, oranges, and pears throughout the trail. As long as you're okay with the existing style, then I would say let's try and get this bed and start ordering some lights.
So I mean, I think if you're saying you think we can do it for $245, and we've already approved. We're approved up to
245 was the price per, so
Oh,
just to be
okay.
clear, the price for the material alone.
Okay, gotcha.
The old proposal was about $245, prices have gone up some, plus that's a different style light. This one was cheaper originally, but now that same light is pretty much in line with this one. And they went about $300.
So roughly the amount that you see, $11,000.
Yes, sir. And we told
That's
us
only
about
extra
$20, we wouldn't go for that much.
Like 20.
And that's for the 20 bollards, correct?
Yes, sir.
Alright. And that was not to exceed of the 11,000, is that correct? Alright.
So, Jason, just doing a quick search, it looks like, you get a, Home Depot has a light voltage light LED light for $242, so if you get to that $400, exact same thing, same profile.
That's $3 cheaper than what Mark just told us. He's at $245.
Ish.
Those are 245?
Yeah.
Is that right? Or
Okay.
did you do the 245 or you said 300? So he said 300, but I know, like Steve, I mean, if you can send us.
No, that's fine, I heard 400, so I'm sorry, I'm getting numbers confused. I heard 400 at one point in time, so if he's saying he's getting it for 250, that includes taxes and everything, then it's in line with what I expect.
Well, when we're factoring in labor and all that stuff, that's why it's coming up to 500.
Okay, so 400 include labor, okay, that makes more sense.
So the mobilization charge, how do you guys calculate that? It's different on everything I see. It's not like my company, we fly rate. So, it's basically it's a 1 hour minimum, for the mobilization. How do you guys calculate that? 'Cause I've seen 100, I've seen 200, I've seen 250, 30.
Days.
Sorry.
Days. Mobilized equipment, trailers, staff, materials for each day. If it's a longer project, it's going to be one to get multiple mobilizations.
Can we break that down on our invoice or on our quotes so that's more clearly?
Sure.
So if it's a 3-day project, mobilization charge per day is X hours.
Yes, so typically the mobilization would be a line item, would be number of mobilizations. And it would be
Yeah, it
whatever.
does say, like
Okay.
4, it
Okay.
says $4 at $65 each.
Okay.
or
Yep. 74 mobilizations.
So-
That makes sense.
Okay.
Makes more sense.
So we said we're doing 20, but now you're saying we have a couple up front that are not working that you're gonna replace, so
So-
we're taking some off of the back that we're not replacing.
So my goal here is to find out how much you want to spend on this project, is not to exceed.
Okay.
And if we're amenable to the style, that's what as many as we can, and that part of the number and get it done.
I would put it at approximately 22, which would take into account for those other two.
Yeah, okay, got it.
They'll find out. Yes.
Your bad math is as good as mine.
We're not quite better than mine right now.
Alrighty, so with that, so we have a motion not to exceed for the 20 volt motion for 11,000. Okay, so that was a motion by Jim. Nope. Steve, you want that one? Steve, sure.
Steve, second.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. Alrighty.
Oh, so glad for this project.
Yeah, you guys have to look up the project.
We've already touched on the entry lighting as well. I touched that earlier in the discussion here, so I'll skip that for now. The water fountain, there's a issue with the water fountain sensor out here. Make note of that because it looks like it was kind of a high notice item. And so we get a sensor coming in for that, we should be able to replace that and we get that back functioning.
And this one out in front the water,
The actual, the water bottle system, yes, so the park company includes under $100, and so we'll try and get that knocked out next time the service is around here. This one, I think, the drain line needs to be cleaned out as well, so we'll try to put those and see if they're taken care of.
the biggest issue with that one, Marshall, is the heat, yeah, like just because the contract.
The line, also, aside from the fountain being exposed, the actual supply line connects it on the pool filter equipment here, connects on the back side of that wall, and it's also pretty exposed. Insulation is, a couple bucks for like 8 feet. It might be something where we can insulate that line, that's what I'm looking into. I just want to make sure I don't make it hotter, but it shouldn't. So that foam insulation, you might see will mostly pipe potentially. And it might give you a more consistent temperature coming at that. Because you won't be fighting to keep the plastic when you night every day.
Right.
So that might be something that we could try again, talking, yeah, pretty much that insulation, guys come out here, they just run it, put it on that insulation line all the way around, because they're going to spigot plus we run that down. And I think that might help some. It won't necessarily fix everything, but I think if you were to try for the amount of investments is.
Yeah, great.
You can make all that.
You were just holding that money right there.
That's good.
I'm saying I can't make my ramen out there anymore, it won't be hot.
Beyond the water fountains, Dupree Drive, I believe it is, that's some chain link fences around the level there. So there's a quick drive through there, and they go forward, like trees and things, it's out of alignment. Just general maintenance items, reporting campaigns to get over to that.
Yeah, I haven't been back there for a while.
Those are a few areas that need a little patch here and there.
Like, I haven't been back, I haven't been back there since before the hurricane, so.
Not something I want to do all the time, but current report that the season kicks in, let's get it done and tidy.
No, where this is at, it's all areas way outside of, where anybody's on the road. One of the areas is where there's a fireworks a few years ago, out of Matt's house. And then there's, I drove a lot of property. Something last year, that's a hurricane. That's a lot of that over there. A lot of it was just keeping cars on.
Beyond that, as far as landscaping, trees go, the grass is about, everything's been detailed this morning, the entrances. Prior to the hotspot panel, shops with Daisy and Colzat last week. I did connect the cardinal on that, and it gets back there and fix that. It's a little rough right now, but it should recover. And then beyond that, that was some main issues I saw. I know there was some notes on some trees, and I would need to get with one of you who didn't directly specifically to that area, so we can fill some in. That is an issue still. I didn't see it with my eyes, but yeah, before anything.
A lot of it's just the detail work, because I was arguing with Cardinal on the proper way to quote unquote prune a tree, but them not maintaining their 8 feet, and that would change to 10. The RFP is not maintaining that 8-foot line, going down the boulevard. That's the biggest thing, so if you got somebody riding a bicycle, it's tall like me, you got somebody in a golf cart, they're hitting it, it's just simple, quick maintenance.
Ponds, I didn't see anything really out of sorts other than just getting extremely low. One little mild, algae showing, but nothing really significant that you should be on top of everything right now.
And you guys we have the driest April in the last 10 years. Yeah, so.
And plus they're pulling everything that we pull over there out here.
Yeah, and all again, it's just like, there's a lot of ponds I've never seen the bottom of, and I've seen bottoms.
You'll see a lot of these.
Yeah. Last time I had one year is the inline filter over as the color evidence, that was leaking.
Yeah.
So that was resolved, I got the part at the end of the time, and they were the ones that ultimately were able to come through and get that repaired, and I think the well vendor that they used and them got that repaired, we were this week before last.
Okay.
Is that what they done and put up purpose, that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically,
Lloyd actually sent me Lloyd actually called me Sunday before last, he was like, hey, you know what this? No, and he sent me a picture.
so the other league is something different, if that's going to be swing, somebody sent me this one, I don't know who exactly it was.
Not it.
Okay. That was something different, and that has not been resolved yet, working at it, resolved that into the hopefully. Just leaving on threads happens at times, and I don't want to go around and poke it, because it'll make it worse.
Yeah.
Right person out there. The inline is one of the, if I call it, that was a big system, it has an inline filter running and essentially what it is there is a cleaning unit where that system is supposed to auto clean, and whether the system is working 100% is questionable. The pressure on it, old UV brittle plastic, it just got pressure is popping.
No,
So
makes sense.
easy fix. Got done. If there's anything else, please let me know.
Yeah, Marshall, this is Steve. One of the things Thomas had on his list for probably 6-7 months now was, Medford had a broken light up the lake.
Yes, sir. There were 3 there that I found.
There's 3 out, okay, so you're on that. And then, he had mentioned that he moved the uplights for the entrance to Copper or Heron at the monument sign. That was not moved. The uplight is really shining out bushes, so you can take a look at trying to position that so it actually can shine up on the monument sign itself.
Steve, if I may, it's a little bit echoey. Which entrance had the floodlight that needed to be repositioned?
That's the Heron entrance to monument signs, that's better.
Okay.
That's way better, Steve.
Yeah, way better, Steve.
Yeah, the nebula lighting, obviously, when that's out, the uplighting on that, it's just, it's shining into the bushes, you really can't see the sign, and Thomas had mentioned that he moved it, but that is not the case.
Okay, then we'll look at that one.
Thank you, Marshall.
Absolutely. If there's anything else?
For me, I always was asking, like, Thomas, you know, about like, when you do your inspections with the landscape management company, do you have like, because there's so much area to inspect, do you have like a kind of a rotation schedule or like, you know, because of all of our like bumpers and.
Depends on the particular landscaper and the issues that we're having. Typically, I will do a drive, and I'll look for things that I see once I get into the community. Initially, obviously Cardinals on their way out, there's only so much I can do with that right now. The new landscaper starts especially, we'll do a few drives together to make sure that we're all looking at the same thing, and we're familiar with the area. Then after that period, assuming the area is being maintained properly, a lot of times I'm probably gonna drive it on my own, and then send them a report of things that I see that need to be fixed. Like complaints in the community, I'll look at it independently, unless I feel there's a reason to escalate. If something's been missed a couple of times and it's told me it's going to be fixed, then I'll definitely make a note to the landscaper. But typically it's, I drive through, I see the one entrance that had every one cul-de-sac that has some burning grass, I'll make a note, I'll get out and check, do I have water, I have water. This might go off, I'll say, hey, look, I checked this out. I might have an issue, I'm not sure. I see a broken irrigation head, I got a hospital here, please get out here and fix this first of the week.
I like that, that sounds really good. I mean, we still might, we can't, you know, prevent all the resident observations and reports that come in about these things, but it helps to have, to feel like somebody's actually like really looking, you know, so we're not the last to know, and hearing it from residents.
And again, I try to do it independently a lot of times because I want the landscaper to be focusing on fixing those repairs. So as long as the communication is good, which to me is key to a good landscaper, then I don't have to sit there and write it. Otherwise, it's a waste of my time, so I can go focus on things like lights or whatever the items.
I don't know exactly what takes place on these drive-throughs, but it does seem rather inefficient.
And if there's something from the board member sees that they want to have a particular, you know, or even residents that they want to look at and say, I have this problem, can we take a look at it? Then that's something I can go and arrange to meet with them. You know, hey guys, this area, well, I didn't see it, but please, let's do it on site, so that I know I'm looking exactly where you're at. Usually I'll make sure the GPS tag will if I need to be.
Feel free to use it, mention me to the world, yeah, some of my areas.
Side by side. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, Marshall, very refreshing. Thank you very much for coming out.
Haven't had that thorough of the details.
Clayton and Marshall of the most seasoned district, the field operations team. So I was very glad when Marshall was assigned over to here to help us get where we need. Like there's just, we've got a lot going on out here at the moment, especially the landscaping and.
I'll make sure it's in Clayton and kudos.
Sorry?
I'll make sure it's in Clayton and kudos.
Yeah, no, good. Thank you for coming on board.
Thank you.
Glad to be here. All right. Moving into district council's report. I know we got discussion of vending machines. I don't see the individual here.
Well, yeah, he wasn't gonna be here, so he actually was on vacation, so I told him I was, we did have a call.
maybe a week or two ago. I believe he did give you guys a presentation at the last meeting, but he was going on vacation, so he wanted me to just discuss it. We discussed on that call with you guys, we made a decision there, and I would inform him of your decision when he got back in town. So, I mean, essentially, it's pretty straightforward here. He just wants a license place of any machine at the district clubhouse. And this license agreement is pretty standard, so for most of our license agreements are a standard licensing agreement. For profit making ventures, we typically demand 10% of the profits. So he mentioned to me that his expectation, based on the vending machines he's installed in various parts of the county, he'd expect maybe $500 a month. In this case, we'd be looking at about $50 per month. I can go ahead and draft that up if you guys are interested, and we can get him to install these meetings back, or
To recall, it's zero cost to us plus 10% upfront.
that's correct. Yep.
And did you say $50 a month for the clubhouse?
Yeah, so-
He's estimating $500 a month in sales,
Yeah.
so it would be $50 a month in profit.
Yeah.
Where is this gonna get installed?
Yeah, I don't know the specific location, but we
I know we talked about licensing, right here inside the door from the outside pool. Imagine you got 20 or 30 of those.
And is there, I mean, if we decide this isn't really worth it or not.
which is like an license agreement, we're able to terminate it really at any time we want to. So, but yeah, and the location, he did mention he wanted it inside, but we didn't want to discuss specifically where in the clubhouse he wanted it. So I mean, if you guys have thoughts on that, we
Yeah,
can.
it might be loud, and I already have trouble hearing it as well. Sound issues.
Yeah, so we can discuss that. But, I'm sure he'll do that. He also mentioned that he does actually live in the community, so service, if there's any issues, would be an issue for him. So, okay.
As they move forward, street terminal location.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer to dream on Dowland on where you guys think is the best. You guys know what activities are happening in here, and obviously we don't want it to get in the way of events or things, so.
It would probably fit on that back wall, that when you go around the corner, put it on that wall right there. That way it won't interfere with your tables if you're having events. It would be my suggestion.
And I think the only other thing I would bring up is, I mean, is that, well, you said it's back there, so it wouldn't be in this room. Like if someone rented the clubhouse, I don't think we want people running in and out in swimsuits, interrupting whoever is renting the clubhouse, so I think that's the only other thing we need to do.
I think at that point, if whoever rented the clubhouse would always lock that back door, still have access to this side over here.
Yeah.
We don't typically leave that door unlocked, it's just the back
The
door,
main door, the main door.
the two main doors going straight through.
Alright, so I've got my direction there, I'll draft the license agreement up, send it over to him, get signed. We can coordinate and a date and time to install it, so.
Any motion for that?
No, board direction is fine.
So we don't, just board direction?
Yeah, I mean, we're not really, I mean, we can't, you guys want to, we're not spending actually any district money, we're only receiving one, so I mean, it's not necessary that we actually have a bunch of group here. Let's see here. Next is legislative updates. So no real updates here, actually. It's a pretty quiet legislative session from our perspective. The legislature is expected to meet again in January, so pretty quick turnaround. If there's anything that kind of comes up during committee weeks, we'll be sure to let you know. But nothing really substantive to come out of this legislative session. Here the discussion of the bring your own beer. So I know I actually been to past few meetings, so I don't know what has been discussed about this so far. I did recall with Jason to kind of take his brain and see where you guys have taken this. In general, when I've dealt with the insurance company and other boards, and when we've had conversations about the possibility of BYOB and incorporating that into our amenity rules, it is doable. Ideally, to protect us from liability, the best thing is to have people hire a third-party vendor, well, necessary licenses and commercial insurance, that whole thing. Not everyone wants to do that, though. It can become cumbersome. One alternative that we pitched to boards and incorporated our rules is actually to have each, so if a resident wants to come in and rent the clubhouse, and then have BYOB at that event, what we would do is we would just require them to get a rider with their home insurance carrier, they can get it, and then just provide that to us when they actually fill out the rental agreement.
I think what we were looking at was more
That's
like,
way too deep.
yeah, before we go too far down that path, we're looking at like a CDD sponsored event, so.
Well, that, or, we might have sponsored like your church youth idea,
That's what I'm saying,
a year
it's put
ago.
on by the CDD,
Yeah.
essentially, or like a club, so somebody offered to do a cooking class.
Now, it's still not to have a party, and they're bringing their own crap, and then it gets rowdy and problem and all that, or whatever, it's to be a very niche
Like
thing.
you have to sign up and say, yes, I'm coming, but one of the ideas I had was doing like how to do a charcuterie board, but I thought it would be really nice to be able to have wine.
Sure,
And
yeah.
someone mentioned, okay, they have to bring their own wine and they can't share. So something like that where it's a very small group that, it's being held here, but if
Yeah.
they would bring their own, could we do something like that? And have them sign a waiver that says they're just gonna drink it themselves, not share, but it would be a way to be able to do some adult things that are catered more to adults in the community and not just the kids.
But, and to answer your question, whether you can do it, so you can, it just depends about your comfortability with risk exposure, so your insurance company would tell you not to do any of this stuff.
You just try to tell us we need to spend $1 million to have 5K, so.
One of the issues with this too is that even with bring your own beer stuff, is that courts interpret the sale of alcohol in Chapter 562 very broadly. So it doesn't. Yes, but sale, as they've defined it, is the courts have interpreted that term as it's used in Chapter 562. Doesn't just mean, direct transaction where money's exchanged for alcohol. It can include things like there was one case where there was a company that provided limousine rides, right? And they provided a cup of champagne. That was considered the sale of alcohol.
Money exchange.
Well, but we're not even providing it, they have to bring it themselves.
Yeah, so, yeah, so it really just, there was another case where there was a restaurant that didn't sell alcohol, but, had to pay for instance, the lights on, that sort of stuff, also sold food. They were also considered to be in violation of Chapter 562, sale of alcohol, even though they didn't sell alcohol at all. The way this is the way the courts have kind of thought about this is basically anything that the entity financially profits from that enables the consumption of alcohol on the premises.
So to me, it sounds like a quick and easy, hold harmless, sign this, and we move on.
It's a gray area, and I think it's probably unlikely that whoever the department that the administrative agency in the state of Florida who regulates these sort of things comes after you for it. But just wanted to let you know that is a gray area, and there's a possibility the district could be found if people do end up exchanging alcohol, could actually be determined to be a seller for purposes of Chapter 562. So they just going to keep in mind the hold harmless. Well, that is nothing. Something like that, like a waiver, would be fine as far as if somebody gets injured at one of these events, right?
I will not share my burden with anybody that's here or allow them to consume blah, 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 and whatever.
Yeah, so it's possible you could work in some language right there where they would have to indemnify us if somebody, right, if the state determined that we were actually in violation of liquor licensing laws, we could make them sign a waiver that would require them to pay all our legal expenses, right?
Essentially, there's two separate issues. You have a little harmless, like you're saying, then the licensure side, which includes sale, distribution, all that stuff.
So can we put all that in one waiver and have them sign a waiver before we do that?
That right there.
Yeah.
That's what we're asking.
Yeah.
If so, can we work on that?
I think this is.
Well,
this
we
has
have
been
to
an
go
open
here.
issue for
Again,
4 months.
we've been like rehashing this for months, I feel like we need to make a decision.
I mean, his job is to mitigate risk
Yeah, I mean, I can't really, so in this thing, I can't really tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm just gonna give you some of the considerations you should think about, and I mean, how you wanna proceed. I mean, this isn't per se legal, right? It just, whenever alcohol is involved, there's definitely going to be an increase in liability exposure.
So let's ask this question
So-
a different way. Can Kudak and Rock
Yeah,
put together a very simple gray area? You can bring shit in here if it's CDD, and I'm not gonna
it's
say
got a form waiver for people to
Just
sign.
Yeah.
put an easy, quick waiver that it's pretty black and white, that I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna sue anybody, done.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Okay.
I think we've talked about a lot of the liabilities in the past few meetings. I think I just don't feel like we're making any progress. I think we keep talking about the liabilities every meeting, but we need to make a decision, I think, one way or another to get this off of our agenda.
Yeah, so
Risk
this is,
accepted, make.
okay, if this is something you guys wanna do, just wanna do the waiver and incorporate this, that's fine. We'll move forward with
I
it.
think
Do you need a
that,
motion, or is that board direction?
just
Or
to
direction.
beat it to a bloody pulp, I just wanna, add though, that waivers are not always, how, courts don't always recognize waivers or to their full extent, right? So I mean, just because somebody signs a waiver releasing all these things.
We could
doesn't
still, yeah, so in the,
Exactly, and I think
in the
that's.
scenario that I laid out before, I would say that if, an administrative agency, a law enforcement agency in charge of regulation of, alcohol, worked up here and determined that, people, even with the waiver, they were still, exchanging alcohol, they could still determine that it was us, as the owner of the premises, who was violating, these laws. So the waiver wouldn't necessarily protect you against that. Like I said, you could include language in there that would require them to, basically pay for any legal expenses incurred in associated, in connection to that violation.
Yeah.
So it's something we
Pretty
could,
shit some of the liability.
yeah, that's something we
There's
could
no
do, for
guarantees
sure,
in
but I
it.
can't, yeah.
And that's just what I wanna be.
As ironclad as you can make it without it being just a bunch of crap that understands.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the thing is, though, no matter what he puts in there, it's not gonna be like bulletproof, it's not gonna protect us.
Well, nothing will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can't, true, I mean, you can get sued for literally anything. So, I mean, I'm just trying to mitigate risk to the greatest extent possible, also allowing you guys to do what you really want to do. So if this is something you really want to do, I can draft a waiver up and minimize liability to the greatest extent.
Yeah, do we need a motion?
No, I don't think so. I'm just really just gonna draft a waiver, send it over to Jason. I don't really need, don't really need the board to approve the waiver. So I'm not making any kind of changes.
Well, ask a simple question.
No, don't ask,
It is fine of us opposed. I don't think anybody is, but would anybody be opposed to this?
Steve, are you opposed?
I won't be sued, so.
You're opposed.
Well, they personal.
I'm sorry, say that again, Janelle?
Are you making this waiver?
No, I'm not going for it.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
She's out.
I-
That's
yeah.
okay. That's
Or
okay.
one.
That's okay.
Move on.
Yeah.
You're allowed to say that.
And for, there might be some, I did check the rules, you see, there might be some minor tweaks that you make language or nothing, which would be so extensive as to require to go back to the chapter and make the process, so no effort was needed. I think I understand where the board wants to go.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So a couple other items that I have here, that were not included on the agenda. So, number one, Form 1, you guys are filling out every year, it's in July, so just a reminder here. Remember that, last year, 2024, what's that? July 1st, yeah.
The email like this is a different.
Send me that email, that's unusual, it's usually July 1st every year. So
You said that too.
Florida Commission on Ethics should have sent you.
I'm gonna have Nicole send the link to you guys for that form to be filled out. She'll provide you've either done it or you haven't. So, I need to file my one, so, yeah. So I'll have the link, so it just tells you, and specifically what email address it was set up with per person.
Ethics, FBMS info. So, state board commission.
I haven't heard of stop and go. Just
Okay.
as an FYI.
That's fine with me.
And
So-
just, we're gonna lose quorum in about 4
No,
minutes. so.
exactly. So let's,
Okay.
anything else?
So just a reminder, and the last thing was the ticket booth had been discussed, so looked at the ordinances, statutes, actually even talked to personnel, and Pasco County officials about this. No requirements, as far as maintenance standards, repairs that apply specifically to items that are designated as cultural and historical resources in Pasco County. It's not recognized as a historical landmark, but at a state or federal level, so we're good there. There's no penalty, for not conduct repairs in a certain amount of time, you know, so, yeah, so, but I mean, you guys can wait as long as you want, it's not gonna get delisted from the registry or anything like that. So, no, there might be, I mean, I don't know how extensive the damages are,
A lot of just fallen trees.
yeah, I mean, so, I mean, there could be things like, right, it was totally demolished, we want to get rid of it, maybe at the point of construction or that, I don't know, I defer to,
The structure is
the-
also damaged, it's just all the crap around.
Yeah, so if it's minor stuff, then I would assume that you don't need any sort of government approval or anything like that. Just whenever, it makes sense for budgetary purposes to make that work, that would be cool. That was basically, that was the end of my report, so I'm happy to answer any other questions you guys have.
Good job, all that.
Alrighty, moving into the amenities report.
All right. So you had 620 residents that used the pool for the month of April. That doesn't include if they brought guests. On April 8th, for your tournament Tuesday, you had 6 residents. For your Easter egg night, you had 100+ residents attend. For the paint night, in April, you had 15 residents attend. April 26th, the garden show, you had 20 residents attend. Easter bingo was 15 residents. And your Pearl Party and Cupcakes had 25 residents to attend. So last meeting, y'all wanted us to bring back another proposal for chairs. You'll see it in there. It was from Florida Patio, so you have 2 to choose from. You have Admiral and you have Florida Patio.
Did we
Admiral
ask-
came in,
Go ahead.
Admiral came in at $2,170 to Riesling 15 chairs, because now you're up to 15 chairs from 11 that have had to be pulled off the deck. And Admiral was at $2,843.18.
Did we ask Admiral about why they're trying to charge a tariff or not tariff yet?
Did not.
And that just throws me completely off on that, they're gonna try to pull that track, and they're more expensive. Yeah.
So, with having 2 proposals, are y'all comfortable with choosing one and moving forward with having that 15? Because right now you only have, 42 chairs with the 15 that are put in the back.
So, question,
Yes, sir.
they're got off the blue, are we going to start reframing and start getting different colors, and then it's gonna be apples and oranges until they're all done, or what is
That, usually if you're gonna do them in sections, is what'll happen is if you wanna change the color, then you can change the color. I don't believe there's a color proposed on here, there's not. So y'all can decide what color you wanna go at, and you can divide them up into 2 groups to get them reslung, or 3 groups. So you take one group, you have them reslung, then you can bring them back, then you can move to the next one when you need to and have them slung. But it will be a course of where you will have some odd colors.
Are we getting loaner chairs, and whenever they start this process of reselling them, are we getting loaners back from the company?
Well, right now you have
We've already had enough.
42 chairs out there, and if you're only gonna do 15, then you'll still have 42 chairs out there. I mean, I do believe that Patio Furniture we can talk to them. They've done it in the past where they gave us loaner chairs.
But they've also not been the nicest of looking chairs.
Yes,
Well, what worse than what we can have.
correct.
Yeah, that, it's not like you're not gonna get apples to apples, you're gonna get something that's pretty. Not pretty, I should
So
say.
do we have, one of the requests we had a few months ago was, samples of what the Riesling was gonna look like? Do we have, like colors or materials or?
I can bring some to the next meeting so y'all can look at them. So you can go from there. Or you can tell me what colors that y'all are looking at to do, and I'll specifically pull them colors. We have swatches.
Something that matches the
Okay.
area, not the.
Well, you said that blue, you weren't too fond of that blue from the comment you made.
Well, that was done by a previous clubhouse guy that just did whatever the hell he wanted to do.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, they're all weird blue now, and it matched nothing.
Okay. So you want it to match the
Aesthetically
surrounding
pleasing, it
colors?
matches just
All right, I will, and I'll bring you some.
I mean, do we wanna wait till the next, again, this is not a committee that
Okay,
we've been
can
doing
you
for like
keep-
30 months, do we just wanna go?
And we can approve it and then.
Well, why don't we do this, motion to approve, but we have liaison, Janelle picks the colour. Is that okay? Do you wanna take that?
You have a strong opinion on the color, would you rather?
Hey, I put full faith.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, right, I would like to, so that'll be a motion to approve the proposal with.
Florida patio.
Florida
Florida
patio.
patio.
All right, and then, obviously that'll be with the 15 chairs, correct?
Correct.
And that was a motion by Glenn.
Sure.
Just a second. And all in favor? Alright, excellent. So, do you know what that would, like, Dreamo reach out? Is that will then mean that we don't have a hold up?
Yeah.
That's the best way to go about that.
Okay, in reference to the playground, Todd did reach out. I know Janelle was on the email, but I don't think the rest of the board was.
He
When-
randomly communicates with me, but it's very rare.
Okay.
No, it's very frustrating when you reach out to me and I have to loop everyone back into that call, like, every single time.
So, you,
Between Janelle, Glenn,
I'll call
staff,
Rear.
you know, there's one of the 5 of us, and then I know that you guys are, if we're not doing it on one chain with Glenn, it's one with Janelle or staff, where we're reaching out to them every 2 or 3 days, but still, it's never a definitive, answer, and just, and if we've got, if we can, I don't know if there's any, is there a performance of, if they don't, that they've taken months doing this, I know that they've had terrible issues with permitting issues that they, or the story that they've told us, is there a way that we can look at this and say the performance on a legal standpoint, because we haven't got this far yet, but Bennett, is there we want to look at this and say, you have not performed whatsoever, can we, you know.
With the playground, that is.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we're supposed to be installed in January.
Yeah, I mean, we can terminate that agreement, and we always have,
Well, we don't want to terminate that agreement.
No,
No, they're nearly getting about to install, but the
Yes.
performance of it, if there was a satisfactory out of 10, I think we're sitting there about half or a 1.
No, we're negative.
Right, so it's because the timing is taking so long, is there anything, is there anything in that contract that could be reviewed of?
We're reducing your payment by 10% based upon performance. You agreed to have this installed on January 31st. It's
Yeah.
May 31st.
yeah, I mean, I had to actually look at the language in that contract. On occasion, we'll include, typically at request of the board, but sometimes I'll include it in there, where if there's a big project, some encouragement for them to finish it in a timely fashion, where we'll be able to deduct money from the final price of the contract, or, if they get done a little bit earlier, maybe, throw in a little extra more money. So I can look at the length of that contract, so I guess it depends whether there's ground that you wouldn't normally have it unless it's written in the contract.
So where are we at on an actual install date? We still not have one?
so he
I will say
replied
this
back.
though, I mean, as far as, I've never actually, had to leverage that provision, but given the fact that, all agreements will have an out for the vendor, and just in general, and it's their amendment issues, we sign contracts, and we just can't get out of the form. I mean, I would guess though, the likelihood of them actually performing all, if you start deducting.
So we're not going to talk about this until it's done.
Okay. But just,
When the structure is built,
yeah.
then we start talking about the conversation.
They're supposedly starting.
Wednesday, do the layout process, which will be marking the spots, post locations, et cetera, yes. And then Thursday and Friday, they're gonna be pre-site work, remove the old slide.
Which was supposed to be done.
That's been relayed to you?
Yes, in a email.
Okay, so it's this week, so, all right.
Well, you're not communicating that to the community.
No.
Yeah, understood.
We'll communicate that, hey, the playground is finished.
Exactly. Yeah, at this point. in the-
And then, let's see, I'm trying to get through this before she has to leave. Your ice machine was making a really odd noise, so they called out for service. It was serviced on the 6th, for the condenser and the pressure tube. And they recommended maintenance, regular maintenance on it.
It probably has never been done.
Men's bathroom, bathroom exit button, there was an issue with it, it was malfunctioning, it was taking 5 or more tries to open it, most likely due to old wiring. Complete IT came out, put a new button, replaced the button on May 12th. Fallon reached out to the Historical Society regarding the ticket booth. Pasco County Historical Society manages the historical resources of Pasco, but they do not oversee historical site renovations. Pasco County may require a certificate of appropriateness for the restoration with a planned scope. Was the information she gathered. In reference to, I did send y'all a report on the activities at the tennis courts, where you had 38 swipes in a 60-day span, and it was, out of the 38 swipes, it was only 20 individuals, and that was on Thursday nights. Y'all had requested that. Also from the tennis program and the pickleball program, the revenue from the first tennis group, the district received $58. From the pickleball, it was $80 the district received. From the new tennis session they just started, it was $73 that you received from that. And pickleball, the next pickleball that they're working on now, it was a $44 that the district received. Let's see.
Are we charging for swim lessons, or is she charging for swim lessons?
That I don't know. That is something we'll have to find out.
We do have a license agreement.
Because she's paying us either 10% of what she's charging or the minimum charge per our clubhouse guidelines.
I have to look, sometimes the agreement won't, require anything. So, I need to check.
Because that was more your contact.
Yeah, I haven't ever, since the initial getting her here, I haven't been keeping up with.
No, I don't think that, in my knowledge, I don't know if the full lesson, but the person was not getting. We were.
Yeah, I can check right now.
Chemicals are going up, that's a lot of extra.
I can check that right now.
Yeah.
I don't.
Let's continue, but look, my understanding, there wasn't a,
That agreement may have been made before we had changed the scope on that, and we didn't go back on that. If that's the case, we need to go back on that.
Yeah.
in case these.
Also, we have seen an increase of people over the weekends, and to the point that you had cars parked up on the grass this past weekend, because your amenities was so crowded. And we're coming to
Was that a party, or was that just?
no, that was just attendance to the pool.
$100 per month. by the way.
That's what she's paying us back.
Do we?
So it sounded like, it sounded like she
Make
didn't.
sure she's paying.
Yeah, it sounded like.
So we're bringing this to the board, of, adding staff on Saturday and Sunday for 8 hours, so it would be broken up 4 hours and 4 hours. It would be from the hours from 2 to 6 and 2 to 6 on Sunday, so you would have 2 people here from 2 to 6 on Saturday and Sunday.
And this is just from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Correct.
Like, we're not looking to do more than that. It's just your,
It's too much for one person.
Yes.
yeah, you guys out of all of our amenity centers is one of the most efficient and runs very, which is great. That's a good, two things to that. Good staff members, but also being a good compliant community, which you might be shocked to hear that, but it's
We
a.
never share problems with them.
What
Yeah.
is the extra cost from that?
So I think did you have that there?
For 14 weeks, it would be what? We talked about it.
It was not to exceed
See,
the
for-
3,600 for that.
Is that total for the whole 14 weeks?
Yes.
Makes sense, Jason. I'll motion approved.
Second.
Alright, so that was a motion, so.
I had 5 more.
Yeah. And that was a
Maybe
motion
just
to
follow up
approve.
on that.
from this past weekend, all those were residents that key carded in for the pool? Or was it
It could have been some with the, thing,
with the tennis or that?
yes, with the
Okay.
tennis.
So that's something we need to police.
It was a
Yeah,
motion.
that's why I was just about to
It's a
ask.
motion
Okay.
by
If we can
Steve.
get a report,
I can do that for you.
well, so it's, you know, go back to the guidelines of how many, you know, residents are allowed per household that are not, you know, that don't live there, and how many, you know, cars that came in that were minors, how many cars that came in that were adults, to make sure that, we're compliant on that, so, you know, Bob that brought his baseball team, you know, now we got a problem. But, you know, Bob with the baseball team says, hey, can you all, you know, do that, approve it, and thing, but that's something else, but.
Right.
So the additional staffing, that was Steve, second by Glenn. All in favor? Already, motion passes.
And I will get you that report.
Thank you. Send it.
I will. I did the last one.
Alrighty.
Background check.
Yes, we do have, moving, so under district manager, registered voters within the district, we have to provide this 1,290 within the community.
I had one more thing before you move on to that. Harvest, the Harvest Fair, what kind of budget are y'all looking at? What ideals do you have for that event? And the same thing with the 4th of July?
Some fun stuff.
Can we think about it and bring it back to next week?
Yes, I just wanted to get it out there so y'all could,
The fall thing, we got time to kind of plan on that.
Right.
July 4th, we need to, that's coming around the corner.
mm-hmm.
So we'll add the July 4th event to the next agenda for review.
Yeah.
Dreamer, you come up with some ideas for that?
Well, we might actually use dollar amounts, but maybe we need to prove a dollar amount, like not to exceed tonight, that way she's got.
Well,
an idea.
yeah, so what we were trying, what she was wanting was to know what kind of budget did you want her to stay within?
I think we need to know how much money we have, and then
Yeah.
what she's thinking of for the next few months as far as, I think the next month is probably in our packet, but
Yes, it
we
is.
need to kind of have an idea of what she's thinking for the remaining months,
Total number
fiscal
of events
year.
for this rest of the.
Yeah,
fiscal year.
and then
Okay.
what do we have left over from that, so we can figure out.
Okay,
what
take a look at it.
Okay.
Okay. It's moving to so registered voters living within the district, 1,290, that's something that we have to provide you guys. Next item that we have on this agenda, we have the financial reports. The first item is, it will be a motion, looking for a motion to approve the check register.
Motion.
So,
Motion by Roberts, and that's a second by Janelle. All in favour? Okay, motion passes. Next item we have a supervisor's request. We're going to go into audience comments. Any supervisor's requests at this time?
The Slope School thing is looking forward, I went back and read the comments and don't need to bother.
Audience comments. Do we have any audience comments at this time?
Yes.
Already, let's,
Do you want me to read this one?
yes.
Basically, the HOA, we would like to request the use of the clubhouse. We've been giving, I think it's 1 day every month, and we're asking if we could get 2 days.
I want to throw in one thing, if you allow me, which was, we were presented with a HOA reservations guideline, which seems to be specifically tailored to just one single entity, i.e. the Dupree Lakes HOA. Doesn't seem to be anything that the district attorney ever got to review, whether the board even got to see it, or whether it was approved or discussed at a meeting. And it's sort of troublesome because it has some restrictions in it that exceed what are in the CD's approved amenities policy. So I guess I can just open it up and say, hey, did you guys see this policy before it was presented to us by GMS?
I haven't seen the policy, this is what you showed me at the HOA meeting, but to say that GMS has, as the amenity management, has sole authority to.
So they can replace restrictions on a single entity that go above and beyond the amenity center.
There's some getting back and forth. It's like questions
Okay.
go all the way through, and then.
Well, the one issue I'd like to raise is that currently the amenity policy only allows us to have one free meeting. I'm going to request that you increase that. Or if not, based on the competitiveness of other competing facilities in the area, at least match what we're able to get at somewhere like the rec center in terms of cost. The other issue is if we could know what the cost would be if our meetings were to go beyond 8 o'clock, so we could maybe possibly book it till 9, because our meetings are gonna run over kind of like this one did.
It's the CDD building.
Okay, it's not a back and forth.
And we're not taking any action right now, so we just need to leave, we can just convert this to a workshop, and listen to the rest of the comments, that's fine, you can go.
Okay, got me. Was there anything else?
No.
I have a comment also regarding the HOA.
All right, so we're actually gonna be losing forum at this point, so how do you wanna just, do you wanna just?
I can stay until she asks her question.
Okay.
Is that what you need?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Okay.
it's,
We go 3
if
minutes.
it's one more question, and you got a second, then go
That's
ahead.
it. So, the HOA, the previous board sent over the entire amount. I would like to see the contract between the HOA and the CDD, for that, events money. In the budget, it was supposed to be monthly and it was sent in bulk. We have no reporting from the CDD on how that money is spent. And we'd like some more information because we don't know why that money was all sent to the CDD. What if the HOA wanted to run some things? And when I discussed it with Fallon, I said, if we gave you all the money and you're running events, could you at least say sponsored by the CDD and the HOA? And she said, well, if you want to come and do the work and set it up and help, sure, we'll put your name on it, but we sent the money. So at least the community should know that the HOA is contributing to this. So I would like to see the contract that was signed between the HOA and the CDD for that money and what the responsibilities are between the two entities. And if not, I would like that money returned so we can send it monthly so we know that that money is going towards what we feel is appropriate. And that's my comment.
That was a year or year.
Yeah, I think we have a motion to adjourn, because this is just general discussion after this, right? And Roberts, and then, do we have a second?
Second.
Carrie, all in
No, I'm
favor?
gonna ask if you're willing to accept it.
7 p.m. Thank you. We'll be in touch. Thank you. Now, Steve, thank you, sir.
I'm reasonable, but
Thanks.
So that was super dismissive.
I didn't know, does say comment, just final comment?
Well, I mean,
on that?
you
Don't necessarily need to respond to comment, but